The son becomes the father the son. This is all I can send you, Kal-El. It's not who I am underneath that defines me, but what I do. You want to get nuts? Come on, let's get nuts. Just because someone stumbles and loses their path doesn't mean they're lost forever. You're making me angry. You wouldn't like me when I'm angry. I let my father die because I trusted him. Because he was convinced that I had to wait. That the world was not ready. What do you think? With great power comes great responsibility. We are Groot. We are Groot. We are Groot. We are Groot. We're Groot. We're Groot. We're Groot. I'm with you till the end of the line. Tell me, do you believe? You will. Big man in a suit of armor. Take that off. And what are you? Genius. Billionaire. Playboy. Philanthropist. I am Batman. I could do this all day. Kill any god. None of you seem to understand. I'm not locked in here with you. You're locked in here with me. You either die a hero, or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain. If you're nothing without suit, then you shouldn't have it. It's not who I am underneath, but what I do that defines me. And I am Iron Man. Fourth wall break inside the fourth wall break. That's like 16 walls. I believe.
Good evening, wherever you are. Welcome to the show. This is the Comics and Ramblings show, which is quite different from, what we do. This is where I just pick on topics that's online and we talk about that. And every now and then we talk about comics and what I've got coming up. And thank you for joining me. As I said, wherever you are, welcome to the show. And thank you for subscribing and thank you for liking and sharing our posts. And if you haven't, why not? I'm just joking. Would love for you to be a part of our show. Also, would love for you to be, in the chat talking with me, because I find, like, as I mentioned the other day, I just like to talk to people, and it's just one of my things, because it allows me to socialize, and I love to talk to the chat and talk about what's going on and what I'm thinking of. So what I'm thinking of today, this week, has been this one about like the body shop closing. Now, there's going to be a reason why that happened, right? And this gentleman here, let me just find his name. His name is Chasing Descent Official, right? Shouldn't give him a like, because like myself, he's a young in the sense of numbers, right? And I don't like to just use other people's material without giving credit. But going in here, like, let's have a look at what it's saying, right?
The body shop have gone into administration, and people on Twitter are pointing to this tweet that they aimed at J.K. Rowling, Joanne Rowling, the author of Harry Potter.
I saw a bit of this.
As to the reason that they have gone broke. Now, here we go. This is the tweet in question. Okay. Hey, at J.K. Rowling, here's something we made earlier. We thought you might like one. We've also popped in a vegan bath bomb and a copy of Trans Rights by at Paisley Currett for you to read in the bath. And there is the product in question. Now, people, like I say, are pointing to this as the reason that the Body Shop have gone into administration. But is that really the case? Now, the reason I ask this question is simple. It's that who actually shops in the Body Shop anyway anymore? We've got one in our local town and nobody goes in there. It's always empty when I walk past, because if you're going to go into that type of shop, people like to choose the branch of Lush instead. Now, they're not doing gangbusters in business themselves, but that is where, if people are going to go and buy that type of product, we tend in our town to see people. We see them in Lush. We never see them in a Body Shop. So is this really a case of get woke and go broke? Let's take a look at an article from the BBC or BBC News to see what they have to say on the situation. Let's have a look. So, Body Shop UK stores and jobs at risk as firm tries to secure future. The Body Shop UK business has entered administration, potentially putting up to 2,000 jobs at risk. The retailer's shops will remain open as usual while the administrators try to save the UK firm. Restructuring firm.
I mean, you never want to be excited or, hurrah about like people losing jobs. That's something that I'm going to talk about later. That is kind of sad because, but the problem here is, like, I looked at the tweets about J.K. Rowling that they put out, and she was getting a lot of abuse hurled at her. And so the Body Shop comes out and adds fuel to the fire, and then people were looking at them going, hey, this is not how you treat women, and women are your customers. There's no guys going to the Body Shop. I remember, like, back in the day, like in the late 80s, right? Well, I think it was late 80s when there was a Body Shop that I went to just with the missus. Actually, no, it was 2006 or something like that, 2007 when we moved to Auckland, when I was married and all that. And because it was there, we're able to go and see what because you wanted to have a look what was happening, every now and then. And then usually, guys would only go in there with their partners, right? With their girlfriends or fiancés or whatever the deal was, or wives, if they're younger, right? Because it's kind of a young brand, unless you got in early in the mid 90s or something like that, or early 90s. And so we have the Body Shop in New Zealand. Now we know that Germany's next on the chopping block with their the German Body Shop. I know the Aussies are on it as well, but I guess we might be next because it's the whole brand getting getting gutted. And like I said, it's not something to be excited about because people are losing their jobs, but as we've learned over the last decade or so, and mainly in the last 5 years or so, that a lot of companies are deciding to go so-called woke, right? Or get woke, where they start attacking their own customers. Like Gillette did that, if I remember right, saying the males are toxic, and the males are the only ones that are using their product, like Gillette mainly using their product, and then they turn around and go, well, Gillette is bad, people who use Gillette are bad. And then you had that huge thing with what was that beer company, light beer, it's like 2%. And here in New Zealand, you only use 2% beer if you just want to hang out, and it's hardly ever, or if you're driving, right? If you're driving, nobody really drinks 2% beer in New Zealand, or so-called light beer, unless it's kind of like that, something's going on, and that's the only way you're able to get, the only thing you're able to get. But we have about 4.55% beer, and we even go up to 8%, which is like elephant beer or some sort of like craft beer. However, with the Body Shop, when you start attacking your own clientele, which is females, by attacking one of the most famous females around, a billionaire, a self-made single mom billionaire who has given her creativity to the entire world. And I just find that kind of atrocious to do, where you take attack someone like J.K. Rowling, hey, you don't have to like her politics, but you don't go out as the body shop and attack that person. And then because your actual customers are females. So that's a pretty sad way to go about it. And I think that's a huge reason why females who basically sided with J.K. Rowling and like this is mums and saying, hey, we ain't going shopping their daughter. Remember, mums have kids, and if they have kids, if they have daughters, they're kind of trying to say, hey, this is the shop we're going to shop with today, and go, no, we're going to go. No, we're not shopping there because these guys said this about J.K. Rowling. I don't care if you like her or not, but you don't treat her that way, and so we're not going to go and spend our money there. So that was the situation, and so thousands of jobs possibly across the world is going to be lost because of this whole idea of like you got a virtue signal. Hey, you could have actually just said, hey, we whatever we don't mind what she's whatever she's saying, that's her business, but we are here for the woman, right? And we'll stand with her for being for being a woman. And here's the thing, whatever she said had nothing to do with females, but it was about protecting females, right? It had nothing to do with the shop. So if you go out and do that, that's on you, all right? So it's basically now they actually harm their business, their customers decide they don't want to go to it, and that was it. So that's kind of, for the workers, the manufacturers, the people there, that's kind of sad. I know that, our own sort of like, I think we have the natural cosmetic or something it's called in New Zealand. It's all around the world. I would hate for those guys to come out and go, to come out and start doing virtue signaling, because this is a global market here now, right? You're not just a little shop or a little manufacturer. You're worldwide in anything you do. And that's kind of like something I think about myself. Like when I'm on here, doing this, I'm kind of like representing my town. I'm representing my friends. I'm representing my family. And I look at myself and I go, how do I want to present myself to you guys? How do I present myself to the world? I can be kind of snarky sometimes and, put out some, snarky jester, because I call myself, I think of myself as a jester, right? If you look on my Facebook, where my friends are, right? And creative people, that I talk with are from, it says uncle, like it says something like son, brother, uncle, and jester, right? So sometimes I can come across and start making jokes, and some people don't get it. So, usually just poking fun at things. And I think even then, I know that I still have a responsibility to my friends. I still have a responsibility to my family. I still have a responsibility to my community, and I mean like real community, like the city I live in, who are like, I know the mayor of my city personally, I know the MP personally, I know the former mayor personally, where we actually hang out or something like at events and stuff and say hello, how are you doing, and politeness, so I take what I do with a bit of responsibility, even though if I want to be joking around and stuff. Now sometimes I'll go on other people's podcasts, like live streams and stuff, especially with Niobe over there. I really love hanging out with that crowd, because I get to just take off the hat for a little bit and just hang out and do silly, talk silly and poke fun at things and really enjoy that environment. And do check out Niobe Comics, and I really enjoy that. Now, and I also watch other people as well, and because I enjoy people's content they make about social media and stuff that I personally don't make myself, right? So like this guy, right? I just, I had to think about I wanted to talk about this, but I thought it would be better if have this guy tell you more about this than I do, because I'm not doing the research on this. I would just see the item come up and I'll just go, okay, so what happened with the body shop? Oh, they got closed down. Okay, let's go have a look. So I think that's something I find really interesting.
FRP, which has been appointed as the administrator, said it would consider all options to find a way forward for the business. The body shop was started by the late Dame Anita Roddick in 1976 from a single shop in Brighton. That's just up the road from us. That's not too far away. It grew into a global brand, pioneering ethical trading and a stance against testing beauty products on animals. And I believe Lush holds that same stance. They've sort of come in and stolen the market, haven't they? FRP Advisory said creating a more nimble and financially stable UK business was an important step in it becoming a modern beauty brand, relevant to customers and able to compete for the long term. So that means, in layman's terms, we're going to have to shut some shops. We're going to have to streamline the business. Some jobs are going to have to go because we're just spending more money than we're bringing in. The administrators are expected to try and substantially cut costs, including on property and rent, which will lead to job cuts. And that's just what I just said. It is highly unlikely that the Body Shop name will completely disappear from Britain's high street after nearly 50 years. Well, the high street in itself is disappearing. Let's face it, online retailers such as Amazon, especially Amazon, are absolutely dominating shopping these days. People go places like that rather than going to the high street. You go into your town centre and see how many shops are shuttered up, how many are boarded up. It is disappearing. So I can actually see this disappearing from the high street, personally. The retailer's British business has more than 200 shops and a handful of franchises across the UK, as well as its headquarters in London. Aurelius, the European private equity firm that bought the brand for £207 million in November, took the drastic decision to place it into administration after poor sales during the key Christmas trading period, because people...
Was it 207 million pounds? Okay, let me do a check on that. Like, you know, I always like to make sure that the currency, in our currency, right, if you're looking at pounds, that's almost like twice that. It's more than us compared to the US. So let me just get this right. British pounds, switch that around, and I'll give me 1 second. I'll show you guys this thing, right? How we work this out. Here we go. So I use this as XE, you know, exchange rate, right? So how do we do like 207, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? Is that how it works? Like I said, it's over 200%, right? I mean, twice the amount, right? Yeah, 200%, right? So look at it. Like, it's a 48 cents New Zealand is $2 US. I mean, pounds, right? Great British pounds, right? Their British value is more than American, right? So if I'll show you here, right? There you go. So you can see the amount, like it drops by a huge amount by being US. So the US dollar isn't that great, but the UK pound compared to New Zealand, wicked, right? So that's a lot of money to put out for this thing. And then to go in with November, right? And then find out that this thing that you bought
on Amazon, it's that simple.
Yeah.
FRP said that the Body Shop had faced an extended period of financial challenges under past owners. The Body Shop has now changed hands 3 times since it was sold by founder Dame Anita in 2006, shortly before her death the following year. Well, she certainly probably cashed out at the right time when it was probably at its peak. There are hopes it will be restructured to better compete with brands such as Lush, best known for its bath bombs and face masks, which is popular with younger shoppers. Lush is where we see people. I go into town, there's a Body Shop, there's a Lush. They're not actually too far away from each other. The Body Shop is always empty. Lush always has a few people in it. Leslie Hayhurst, 70, was one of the Body Shop's first customers and lived locally to its first shop in Brighton. She told the BBC she had first gone into the store in her early 20s to get her ears pierced. Now, if you want your ears pierced in a dodgy shop, you've just got to go in Claire's Accessories. It was so new, we didn't have anything else like it. The whole atmosphere was so colourful and yet so cozy, she said. But Leslie said the products she liked are expensive and that she cannot always afford to buy them. And this is why people don't go in there, because it is not cheap. And this is why they've had to go into restructuring.
Yeah, and that's, but I mean, in the 90s, right, when money was money, right, when there was value to it, to a Kiwi dollar, right, and the US dollar was like around about, you know, $1.25 or something like to a New Zealand dollar, so we were quite well, I guess, you know, in the exchange game. So late 80s, early 90s, right, the body shop in New Zealand was that really interesting place you could go on. It was all I can remember is of walls of really cool looking things, and then there was a counter and so on, and you know, and everybody was kind of hip, right? And you know, you kind of went in and you knew that, you know, that it was an upper market thing, kind of thing. However, and this is on Queen Street, like the most probably expensive street in New Zealand, and which is in Auckland, right, our largest city in all of New Zealand, really. And you know, it's where basically your most international travelers come to, and have been coming to over the, you know, ever since you know, people started visiting New Zealand, I guess, and that's where they say first stop. And so, you know, and then Queen Street, you know, has everything. Now, online shopping, right, is what is, excuse me, is the next on the game. And so I'm going to go in with like talk about that. Now, the reason I bring this up is because I've been looking a lot at like how we as you know, as customers have basically stopped trying to support local business because of the easiness and the cheapness and the low cost of freight, or no cost of freight from coming out of China. Now, there's two issues we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about the whole idea of how China has this thing called this developing country status, which allows them to get free post anywhere in the world, like anywhere, which is really, really pissed off South Africans, right? And like, you know, like, I mean, the whole country, right? Because, you know, you've got Chinese business people going in there and, you know, setting up a whole, like basically taking up entire malls, you know, and like with cheap product, which is throwing out like local producers, like people that are actually creating product locally, like you know, people who can have like vendors outside, you know, on the street and stuff. So what's doing is by bringing in these huge amounts of like dropping containers of cheap products, right, because there's no fees to actually carting them across, and also like fake product has really destroyed the economy of the village, of the townships, of the, you know, and this is not just Africa, also across to India, you know, like these are huge countries being affected by this because of the whole developing country status out of China. So here's a good video I'm going to play, and then after that we're going to look at another video. So online shopping, you know, what can you know, and here's the thing. I'm going to be honest. I've bought some online stuff, right? And then for the last couple of years, like T-shirts, you know, figurines. You know, I even bought what was it? A recent thing I bought from Trade Me, thinking it was in country, and so I had to pay for freight as well as for the item, thinking that it was in New Zealand. You know, I misread what was being said because it said it's a New Zealand company that was, you know, putting it out there. And so I had a real bad experience with that, where actually I think it's you know, it's put up there somewhere, so under thing, and I wanted like to find out if they could replace it or give me something because it wasn't working. It's basically a webcam holder, right? And it will turn and twist. The thing about it is my lamp that's like about 20 years old just turns like this. I can just push it around and a thing. That thing, you have to really wrench it. And I'm like, this is very shoddy material. That there isn't actually any goodness in this product, and you know, like any value to me in this product, because I have to really work at it. And I'm not like freaking super strong, as you can see, my arms are like freaking twigs, right? But even though I still have some strength, and if my freaking lamp, 20 years old, with the same mechanism, which is like, you can move it around so it stays there, is able to work, why can't this thing do the same thing? It's supposed to be like stick to my desk and then like move around, so I could actually move around the webcam to show stuff that's on my desk while I'm live streaming. However, now because I paid something like about $30+ for it, it's just stationary. And it really pissed me off, because not only did it not come from a New Zealand business, it actually was imported to that New Zealand business for free. Excuse me. I was baking today, and I smelled some burning, and I was like, wait, there's nothing in the oven and the power's off, and like, why am I smelling baking? So it's something from the outside. I'm gonna have to close the window. I just realized. Yeah, it smells like someone's doing setting up a barbecue, and so because my window is open, there's a tunnel thing coming across. So apologies for that. We're not being on screen for a bit there, but yeah, I don't want my whole room smelling like burnt, charcoal. However, I've been baking all afternoon, and so I've been baking a cake and some Danish using almost expired material. So I thought I better get that out. And plus, I felt like baking today. So let's have a look at this video, right? Here we go.
And what I found inside really shocked me.
So let's watch this from the start.
This is a pair of down pants my mom bought for my child online. My child said that they were uncomfortable to wear, always complaining about feeling something odd inside. So I decided to cut it open here, and what I found inside really shocked me. It was betel nut husks and cigarette butts. These were the first batch of foreign objects I removed. Just now, I felt there might be something else around here, like some sort of hard cardboard. Oh my goodness, it's plastic and hard cardboard. Can you believe these were in the line of children down pants? No wonder she said it felt like it was pinching her flesh uncomfortably. Online shopping has become an important mode of consumption.
Serious, right? So you buy clothing for your child, and like it was a grandmother buying for a grandchild, and the grandchild's not wanting to wear it, and you say, hey, come on, wear it, because I bought it for you, and you kind of think like, well, and child's going, it's itchy, it's it doesn't feel right, it's like something poking me, and then you got to realize that there's all this toxic material in there, like cigarette butt, Philip. Seriously, like, have a listen to this again, right? Because that's very important, right?
Odd inside. So I decided to cut it open here, and what I found inside really shocked me. It was betel nut husks and cigarette butts. These were the first.
That's it. So this is betel nut. I don't know what betel nut is. Let me actually, like I said, I like to make sure my research is good on this one. So betel nut husk, right? So what is that? Right, give us an image of that. Right, so look at this. Let me just, here we go. So actually, let's get that onto a screen by itself, bring it up. Here we go. So this is basically what is inside this thing. Like for clothes, for kids, the husk of that. So this is this white fluffy thing, right? Which it kind of looks like a coconut, right? Which inside of the coconut husk, right? Same deal. Which is kind of like so gross. I mean, seriously, this is for kids, right? Look at how hard that thing would be. Let me just grab another screenshot. Here, image, sorry, I should say. Yeah, so this is it here. Look at that. Inside clothing for kids. This is like a really despicable thing. And so one of the things that I've learned, and I'm not, it is what it is, right? So we're going to be honest about what we're saying here. So it's when you find toxic material for kids, like as you can see, that's not supposed to be in kids' clothes, right? You're not, and I've put the link in the chat for this whole video so you can see that. But I just want to look at some bits of this. But this really grossed me out. Like, this is child's clothing, right? And bought as a gift, you know.
Dispatch of foreign objects I removed. Just now, I felt there might be something else around here, like some sort of hard cardboard. Oh my goodness, it's plastic and hard cardboard. Can you believe these were in the line of children down pants? No wonder she said it felt like it was pinching her flesh uncomfortably. Online shopping has become an important mode of consumption and lifestyle for people today, with e-commerce platforms offering a shopping experience that teeters between promise and uncertainty. These platforms have upended traditional retail models, allowing Chinese suppliers to connect directly with consumers and eliminating
that, like, you know, the body shop clothing, and people not going into it because it's expensive and all that. And now we're going to have the cheap versions of that, like knockoffs and stuff. And everybody wants to go to online shopping now. And that is actually destructive to your local community, right? And I've been really thinking about this in the last couple of years, like especially the last 2 years, like thinking how destructive it is that everybody turns to online shopping, where the income and all the money you put out is going outside of the country, not even in your community. So, like, here's how this works, right? When you put $1 in the community, you know, on the counter in the community, it goes out to pay wages. It goes, you know, portions of it goes to power bill in the community, right? So it goes to the landlord for rent, and then that landlord uses whatever for whatever, and so it moves right in the community. However, if you go online shopping, it just goes overseas, right? It doesn't remain there. And this is something that I learned from Dick Smith, you know, from the Dick Smith electronics guy. And he was talking about how motels and hotels, if you book online, they have to pay someone else a fee to be able to use that motel booking, right? Online booking. But if you ring them directly, you actually save money, and actually they cut out that online person, right? And they were saying like about 10% of all, you know, basically all income is going overseas because of that. And so why not just ring up get on the phone and call them up? Everybody's got an 0800 number. Like, it's a free call, right? Especially businesses. And so you can just go, hey, what have you got there? You know, what, you know, I saw online that you had a special on. Can you do something for it? Yeah. You know, and like, yeah, we've got the special running, you know, and that way you're actually helping that business, and you're helping that, you know, keep that money in that community. I did that year before last year, 2022, right? I had to go to Kerikeri to set up business. And I rang them up after having seen Dick Smith's thing. I rang them up and said, yeah, you know, it was really cool. I enjoyed my stay. Wi-Fi had a bit of a problem, but that was because like there was like the tree had got in the way, and they had got to cut the tree. And you know, it was really cool. Like, they actually commented on that, and I said, yeah, you know. But look, do you really care about your community? That's what it comes down to. Do you care about there being a business that can employ your parent, your cousins, your brother, your sister, your uncle, you know, your nephews, and as they grow up? Now, if you just keep buying online, and I'm not saying don't buy online, but if you continue buying online, your community is getting affected by that, because all the money that's going right now with online shopping is going to a handful of people, a handful of companies. So here's something, right?
The need for middlemen. This unique approach has made product prices significantly lower than those in conventional markets. The question is whether these online shopping platforms are hidden gems, offering unmatched deals to customers, or traps that shoppers should be wary of. With an increasing number of merchants joining, the issue of counterfeit goods and knockoff brands on Chinese e-commerce platforms is growing, and many products have untraceable origins, making it harder to regulate these online platforms. Solutions to this problem, such as those offered by Taobao, are limited. When faced with potentially illegal counterfeit products, Taobao customer service merely states that merchants will have their shop credibility points deducted or their products taken down as punishment. Many knockoff merchants exploit policy loopholes to enter the market, imitating the appearance or functionality of mainstream brand products at a much lower cost, creating knockoff brands that surpass the genuine products in terms of price. When warned by customer service of online shopping platforms, these merchants simply shut down their shops, leaving customers and customer service with no recourse for complaints or refunds. These policy and regulatory gaps have emboldened counterfeiters in China, where a search on any online shopping platform for high-quality replicas will reveal a variety of luxury brand clothing at suspiciously low price.
And so that's one of the things that I thought, like, so the item I got, I was just looking for it there before, but I can't remember where I put it. I said to the guy, would trade me, I said, listen, this product isn't what I expected because, what it's showing isn't what it is. It's not as simple to use. And it's like, I want to dispute it. I want my money back, or can I get a refund, or can I just get one that works? Because one of the things that it was also, one of the pieces didn't even fit. All right, so it was counterfeit. It wasn't the real thing, and it was just like back and forth, and there was nothing happening. And I think, this is the problem, right? So if you're buying online, and this is why I've stopped buying online, I kind of like basically only stick with local companies, right? Because I buy a lot of toys because that's what I do. That's my thing, right? Because I can buy comics as well, but I can buy directly from the seller right now, especially with indie comics and stuff like that. And I've done that recently, and we made a video about it with Tom Hutchison and with Big Dog Inc. Show and tell. And so when I had that experience early this year, right, I was like, this is it. This is the last straw. I'm getting tired of having to deal with online stores because, especially this way, and the only thing I'm going to buy is if I really, really need to. But on top of that is like, I should basically support my local community as well. Why spend outside my community, outside my city, when it's not gonna help my city, right? So when it's not gonna help my community, and I think that's kind of really, really, this sort of like this whole because I've been following this for a lot, right? This whole thing about China and freight and everything for a while. And customer service and stuff, because it's not in the sense of like, like kind of racist thing. It's just like, what the hell's going on there? It's like, what is this thing about where, everything's getting fake, everything's like product that's really crappy. And recently, huge companies are basically leaving China, like huge companies, like cosmetics, because everything these guys have been producing for the last decade or so in China are being copied, right? And we're going to look at that here.
The adage, you get what you pay for, holds true, as the absence of a product inspection mechanism on online shopping platforms allows unscrupulous merchants to sell substandard goods at low prices, completely disregarding the safety of their customers. However, for Chinese consumers, encountering dangerous knockoffs has become all too common. From luxury brands to everyday items and even food, knockoff products have permeated the lives of Chinese people, making it impossible for them to avoid and difficult to report as well. It's so common to see an authentic product launched one day, only to be flooded with numerous similar knockoffs the next day. Even when consumers discover they have been deceived and decide to report the unscrupulous merchants, it's not guaranteed that these merchants will face legal consequences. The main reasons can be attributed to three factors. First, China's insufficient protection of intellectual property rights allows these merchants to exploit the imperfections of Chinese law to defend themselves. Second, some well-known knockoff merchants, due to their complex supply chains and large profits, may have formed special care relationships with officials to avoid trouble, as is the case in Putian, Fujian, where 90% of the population is involved with counterfeit Putian shoes. Who is going to report such cases when virtually everyone is on board? Third, there is a regulatory vacuum in China's market supervision where regulatory departments act perfunctorily. How so? Consider the following example. On November 3, 2023, a man with the alias Ah Feng in Jinling, Shandong, purchased a set of African solid wood tea table and chairs from Qi Feng Furniture Store on Taobao. Upon receiving the product, Ah Feng discovered quality issues and suspected it was a counterfeit. Ah Feng repeatedly requested product certification, quality inspection report.
Like I said, you know, like you go and say, hey, what brand it is. There's no brand on it. There's no sort of like registration coming. This is what this product is. This is how, you know, what quality is made. And like basically you could like, you know, move it to position. Next thing it snaps. And I think that's the reason also why you should shop locally, right? And like even with importers, like if they're importing this product, local governance, local law and safety and, you know, commercial business practices and like merchant rules that are governed in the West aren't the same in China, right? Or, you know, certain countries overseas, not just in China. So for us here, the only protection we have is our laws, right? On sales and goods and services and stuff like that. And so we can basically rock up and go, hey, this is crap. All right, I got it home and it didn't work. So I want a refund or give me a replacement, right? And you can work that way. Otherwise, you know, they give you store credit and stuff like that. So there's rules there. There is no rules to, you know, to online shopping. There is no sort of protection for you if you're online shopping, because they could just close that account down. Next thing they popped up is under another name. Same thing, right? Bought Lego, kind of like building blocks stuff, right? So with that, because I just started to grab a bunch of those because there was some that was there, and I had pieces that are missing from another one, right? So I bought some. The quality was really bad. They were sharp, and I'm thinking like, you know, it's not something you want to give to kids. So you know, okay, Lego's pricey, and so you know, and there's other, you know, there's like mega blocks and stuff like that, but they've done years and decades of research on how to make the product be safe around children, so there's no sharp edges and stuff like that. Now I'm okay with, like, I don't mind sharp edges, but I'm thinking, well, if I was going to give this a gift and just say some young kid or baby was playing with the one that I gave it to, the elder kid, right, and the young baby comes along and next thing you know he's got cuts and puts it in a mouth and the mouth is bleeding. That sort of thing is like, you know, not fake knockoffs, and we don't think about these things around safety around kids, and so we just go, oh, it's cheap. And adults, it's okay if your adults are buying it, right? We know what we're getting, but what about young kids, right? They don't know what they're getting gifted and stuff like that. And so the confusion is like, you think you're getting Lego, but you're not. You're getting a cheaper knockoff, and you know, it's like, oh, it's building blocks. Okay, cool. And also, you know, you're going to pay back freight, especially when you got free freight to you, and then now you're going to have to pay freight back to them to get it. Now, I know with not Temu, I've had like I haven't had bad experiences, but I bought Lego from there, and you know, and some, I think a badge and a ring, and so I think it was like a Star Trek ring, and I, you know, I paid for what I paid for, right? So, but the plating started wearing off real quick, right? I only wore it like about 5-6 times because I don't like wearing rings, and I'm, you know, usually doing dishes or cleaning up, and it's just, you know, I only wanted to wear it when I was going out. So the idea that like you've got people with different rules and regulations in their countries, you know, and this guy goes and goes, hey, look, this is supposed to be from Africa, and it's got this, and next thing you know, it's not that.
China's market supervision, where regulatory departments act perfunctorily. How so? Consider the following example.
Yeah, this is a good example.
On November 3rd, 2023, a man with the alias Ah Feng in Jinling, Shandong, purchased a set of African solid wood tea table and chairs from Qi Feng Furniture Store on Taobao. Upon receiving the product, Ah Feng discovered quality issues and suspected it was a counterfeit. Ah Feng repeatedly requested product certification, quality inspection reports, and furniture usage instructions, but the shop owner consistently refused to provide them. In frustration, Ah Feng reported this to the Hangzhou Market Regulatory Department, which, to his astonishment, asked him to provide evidence of the merchant's wrongdoing instead of initiating an immediate investigation.
Why are there so many counterfeit goods on Taobao? Is it because your market monitoring and supervisory department aren't doing their job? That's the way
Taobao is a huge thing in Asia, right? Like Philippines, Korea, South Korea, Indonesia, and all that, right? And it's like one of the biggest online stores, right? Temu is more kind of worldwide, huge wise like that, but like Taobao is like basically majority, right, used by Asians, because it's kind of like it's part of the WeChat thing, and you'll learn about a bit about the WeChat. I mean, and if you're not aware of WeChat, it's like basically online everything, right? It's got your credit card on there. It's swipe whatever, ID, everything on that one chat thing. And this is what like X wants to become. And I am as a even though, like I say, like I'll write stories about technology, sci-fi, and stuff, right? I still have my doubts on how good this is for New Zealand or for the West, like something like WeChat, because not only do they get access to your bank, they get access to everything, right? So if something like that is getting access to everything about you, your social media, your photos of family, your children's photos, your relationships, and all this. You don't want one app to have that, and I'm afraid, like I said, I'm not afraid, but I'm like mindful of the fact that if I wouldn't be signing up if X started doing that. That's for sure, right? I'd be very doubtful to do that. And I've actually for the last 2 years I've had to actually put WeChat on my. I actually had to upgrade my phone because of WeChat, because of the amount of data it uses, and so. Because I had to actually buy a freaking new phone, like $450 or something, even though my other phone was working really well. But because we're doing business, I just throw out $500 for a freaking app, which because my phone wouldn't work without it, and because the reason was that we were doing business with the person that everybody was like basically using this app, right? He was Chinese, and we had a good relationship, and we still do, and but I had to spend money to upgrade, and so because it translated everything I said into Mandarin or Cantonese, and so everybody, whatever language you were speaking to, it would turn into that language, right, on that phone, right? Which you can do, like at the moment you can go and write some stuff, and you can go into Twitter, and it'll just go translate this, and it'll translate, right? I think you can also do that on Facebook as well. Haven't used that, people speaking to me in another language on Facebook, where I've needed to do that recently. I think I've done that in the past, though. So I'm not keen on the whole WeChat thing and the whole X trying to be WeChat for the West, because even though, and here's the thing, like I've mentioned this before with my writing with comic books and stuff, like when we still, when we write about stories, especially when it comes to the whole Robot Nation series that we got, that we got coming up. And like I said, this is about comics and ramblings, right? So we're going to be releasing this comic, which is about future, which is about things, we put it like as robots as the main hero of it, but we're going to deal with like, science fiction things. And we're going to look at how, what sort of, how we delve into technology and stuff, kind of like a Black Mirror type thing. But this is something I thought up in like 2007, right, with a little story called Pragbot, right? And so this is, you can go online right now, and there's links in the link is actually in the chat, which is risingsunpublishing.com, and you can go into the store, search Robot Nation, and it'll come up. And for $2.99 US, you can grab the book right now, complete 28 pages of art and 36 pages all up with extras and all that, letting you know about what we're doing, who's writing, who wrote it, who the artwork, and some behind the scenes, back matter and stuff like that, and extra art. So, so with this comic, I'm looking at exploring futures, like I'm exploring space, I'm exploring planets, exploring all of little things, right? And it's this one here we're looking at, like, the first story is basically about a young couple coming back from like a sabbatical, kind of like going away for her mental health, and coming back to realize that the world's changed, right? Their countryside where they live has changed. And the next story is about a family in space running out of fuel, right? Waiting to go to their, traveling to their new job on Venus, and they're stuck in, in orbit, circling the planet, going, can we land, please? Can we land? We're running out of thing. And, basically, when you're running out of fuel, you got to stop, right? You got to land before you totally run out, or you're just like stuck in orbit, spinning around with no fuel. So that's the second story. So they're complete stories in this comic book. 28 pages, there's a 12-page, and there's a 16-page story. You can, it's a one and done if you want, or you can get the next issue, which is like an ongoing series, as well as a short story of 10 pages, which is like, you can, be satisfied with reading a complete story, as well as like an ongoing story, which would be part 1 and part 2, in the next issue 2 and 3. So you can buy the, the digital comic right now, or you can wait, and when we go to Kickstarter, and we'll be releasing a color version, right? And if people are really interested, on a stretch goal, we're going to look at doing a black and white version, like a noir version, right? A colorless version of it as well, because I think the art is amazing in this comic book by Francisco Conti, who's the artist on this. So heading back to our, to our little cigarette butts and cardboard as fillers, right? So
I see it.
If you claim it's counterfeit, you need to provide valid evidence, which neither of you can.
No, I did ask him for it, according to my rights, including what I asked him for, and he can't present it to me. Can I consider it his fault?
But he can't present the evidence.
Why can't he? As a market regulator, can't you demand it from him?
He can't present it. How can we verify his situation if he hasn't presented the evidence to our department?
Awesome. You take him to
what is your department even doing?
Yeah.
China began a major crackdown on knockoff products in 2022 to curb the widespread circulation and sale of counterfeit goods in the market, with large quantities of fake products being destroyed daily. However, online shopping platforms are lenient in screening merchants and products. This, combined with government regulatory departments in action, suggests that these crackdown efforts might only be superficial. Customers can still find knockoff products on online shopping platforms, although knockoff merchants are no longer as openly selling fake goods as before, but they have not decreased in number or have been completely eliminated because of government regulations.
Who said that knockoff smartphones have disappeared, while this one is blatantly appearing on the homepage of an e-commerce platform? A fan mentioned that their family searched online for mobile phones, and they came across a knockoff called
Like, here's the thing, like, if you watch this and you go, oh, he's picking on the Chinese people, like, this harms the Chinese people themselves, right? The customers in the country themselves. This harms the Asian people, right? And then, of course, then it harms us as well in the West, right? So it's not just like, oh, the bad guy from the West is talking down about the products from China. No, this actually harms their local community. Remember, it was just before we showed, it was a Chinese person who was saying, this is a knockoff, according, this is supposed to be real solid African timber, right, wood, and that's knockoff. And then their own freaking regulating body says, well, we can't force them to tell us, give us the papers for it. It's like, then you're useless. So what's the point? That's why I say we in the West have an amazing system in place, right? Sometimes it doesn't work fully, but we are better off in our capitalism than they are in their communism. And that's why I say, that I love what we have here in the West. And I appreciate what we have, right? It's not always perfect, but it's way better than friggin', that sort of thing. This sort of system.
Equipped with a Qualcomm Snapdragon 888 processor, and it was selling quite well. Only upon bringing it home do people realize it is a knockoff.
These incidents reflect the Chinese government's inability to effectively combat knockoff goods and fake products. They've not only failed to stop the emergence of counterfeit goods, but also allowed China's knockoff products market to expand overseas through online shopping platforms. In recent years, foreign customs have repeatedly seized poor quality counterfeit goods from China and Hong Kong. This has led to a global increase in vigilance against products sold from China. Several Chinese online shopping platforms and physical stores.
So I'm just going to search for this this video that I saw that came out from I think it was China Fact Chasers or something like that. Let me just bring it up. And it was about like what was it? Let me just find out. I think it was yesterday. They put it out, or the day before. Let me get to the most recent videos and I'll bring it up. So let me just give me a search here. So just bear with me, because these guys have lived in China, right? They biked through China. They had a business in China. So I think it was it this one? Oh, here we go. This one. It was just yesterday, 24 hours.
You guys might have seen this.
So he was talking about this, but he was talking about, I think it's about here. And do give this guys a follow. I'm just going to just do a little clip because he talks about how they were, I'm not sure if it's the right place here. Wasn't thinking about showing this, but it's very important.
See these exact same ones in Huajiang Bay. And,
the link for
that a lot of foreigners would do.
So.
We'll get to that. Let me just actually get to the product itself. Sorry. Yeah. Bam. Okay. See, in their advertising, they're like, look how rugged it is. Look, it's good for patriots. They keep selling out. They're so amazing. Like, you charge all your crap from it, etc., etc. Which, I mean,
there's this whole sob story, especially on Facebook, on their campaign. It's like, man, it says like the emoji. It's like, man, they're selling out.
Remember, I just said like how it affects the people in China themselves, right? So these guys were living there, and I think it's about. Let me just fast forward a bit. About here. Right.
And they cost $10. So
that's one unit. So if you bought multiple, they're much cheaper.
So, I mean, look, I'm not trying to undercut this company, because that is the exact same thing. The reason I said pay attention to the little compass thing is because if you actually look at the pictures, look, it is the exact same thing. See, it's got the little compass keychain. You can see it there. This is that unit.
The only difference is they'll get OEM stenciling on for their brand.
I mean, I've done this before. I've helped people source products in China where you go to the factory and you sit down with them and you work out a minimum order quantity, and you say, look, we're going to order like 10 boxes of 5,000 or whatever, and then they put the logo on for free for you. That's part of the whole thing, the OEM thing. That's what they've done here. So they're selling something for like $30 that costs $10.
Which, I mean,
and
profit's
whatever,
profit.
like that's their business model. But the whole point is that it's just disingenuous to make this like for patriots.
That's why I wanted
made
to
in the
go
USA.
back to the beginning. Like, we'll meet ourselves, but listen to their mission.
Yeah, just listen to the mission.
Okay, so let me pop. I'm not really concerned about that, but there's a thing about where there's a fire happened because of this product, right? A certain product. Now, where are you, dude?
And I did. For many years, I tried my best to, to accept Chinese products and to try them all out and give them a fair run. I bought Chinese motorcycles. I bought
never
Chinese,
for our company.
Yeah,
we tried.
Yeah, Chinese electronics. Lots of different kinds of Chinese electronics that I bought. And Chinese furniture, Chinese everything. I've given all Chinese products a fair run, and I must say that without, DJI is probably the only one that I can say. And some of the smartphone makers, which are basically just copies of, the biggest stuff anyway, except for DJI and say some of the bigger smartphone makers, I was let down every single time. Remember the electric bikes that I bought, the foldable electric bikes and stuff, always coming apart, not good. So if I have a choice between buying something that's made in China and something that's made in Germany or Taiwan or America, I will always choose the other country if I have that choice. And at the same time, also branding. You can still buy like a Sony product, even if it's made in China, because the oversight in the factories is good. They have usually Japanese staff from Japan in the factories. The same goes for any other nationality.
Sure.
Making sure that no corners are cut, that the proper safety regulations are in place. And then you can rest easy knowing that your product's not going to blow up. And you know what? I've had some scary situations. There was a time in winter in Shenzhen, it gets really cold, which is weird. There's no heating and stuff. So in the supermarket, in a well-known supermarket, A-Best, Xingijia, it's a big chain around China. They were selling on special these little heatable bags. And what it is, it's like a little bag.
I got a story like that on my own.
Right? Yeah. It's like a little hot water bottle. Yeah. And you plug it into the wall, and then it's got a heating element inside, and it heats up.
I would never buy that.
And it gets nice and warm, and then you can like put it on your lap or on your feet or whatever. I bought one of them from this well-known supermarket, and I plugged it in the wall in my apartment, and it exploded because something went wrong with the temperature regulator or whatever, and it just kept expanding. And luckily I wasn't in the room at the time when it exploded, because that's boiling hot, scalding hot, whatever that liquid.
With electricity.
Yeah, whatever liquid is in there, because it's not water. They use something else so it doesn't corrode stuff. It just went everywhere. That would have like given me 3rd-degree burns, or imagine your kid or your wife or something. So after that experience, and also like various motorcycles failing, I mean, like parts like break, like the handlebars breaking and stuff. Yeah,
Chinesium.
Yeah, I decided that I'd given them enough of a chance, and that's that. No more. So
we had some really rough experiences because we went to motorcycle fairs to source.
So my experience, like with like counterfeit good, right? Like I got in around about like. I got married in 2000s, right? And so what part of my gift from Fiji, because I got married in Fiji, my uncle, my eldest uncle actually, bought us a gift, a lamp, like a really really cool lamp, and because products comes from China there, but he still had to pay a lot of money in Fiji dollars, because let's run about like the average like retail customer service person's making like about $2.50 an hour. So if this thing's going to cost $40, that's like a couple of days worth of work, right? Like a whole week's worth of work, I should say. So then you give it as a gift to your your first nephew, right? Because like if you think about your out of your 4 sisters, your first male your nephew is getting married, because I'm like the first in the line, right? And the kind of the oldest. And so it was very important. It was like very special for us. Like I didn't think about it at that time, but everybody sort of made me realize what they were saying, like, hey, this is very important. Then comes your sister, then comes your brother, and your so on. And so I got it home here, and we put it on. It was like started melting. The friggin' thing started melting, and you can think about it. If I wasn't at home when that was on, or my ex-wife wasn't at home, and we left it on by accident, it would have like caught on fire. And so it's not just it's like, oh, just fake product, it's a counterfeit. No. It's dangerous, and not only to us, to them themselves, right? Back in China, these products are really dangerous to themselves. And I think a lot of people just, when we start saying, stop buying Chinese products, they think, oh, it's because you're being racist towards them. No, they actually are harming their own community. I've noticed, like, because I've been paying a bit more attention, because we do business with China, right? And so with that, when you start, like same thing, we do business with America. So I start looking at what things are like happening in America, because I'm all about research when it comes to storytelling and writing. I really do a lot of in-depth, like, if you've seen me talk about these things, about my writing and stuff, I really get into, the nitty-gritty of what I'm writing about. Because like I always say, like 90% of what I write, you don't even you will never get to see out there. Or you see these like 10% of what's there on the paper, because all the research, the hours it's spent, like tens of 20 hours or something, sometimes on just a couple bit of pages of work. Right now we've got Louise who's working every day, basically coming up with new characters for one of those stories we're going on. He comes back and goes, oh, here's a costume. It's like, yeah, this is the costume reference for that, and here's the image, and he does like a side view and he does the front view, and I'm going profile or whatever they call it, right? And he does the whole costumes, and then when I say, yeah, this is cool, then he goes and colors them, and then look at the color tone of the skin. And so there's a lot of work put in, and then when all you see at the end is, oh, that's the color of the thing, and there's a costume, that's it. But here we are spending hours throughout the day back and forth talking about how these characters are going to look when they get out there. Like we were looking at this, and he kind of like misheard me, and like he went and put a younger one of the what we call the Duchess, right, who's supposed to be like 30, 40 years old, and he misheard, or when we were having a meeting, and he didn't realize he had looked at the wrong folder, and he'd done a younger version. And so while I'm cooking and I'm baking, and in between that and listening to Katie Didd's channel, who's going to actually be on, like a guest on one of our one of our interviews, or like a conversation with and with her coming up, because I was able to just ask her, and while in between like freaking watching that and doing cooking, baking today, we made about 3 cakes, or 2 danishes and a cake, right? And also on Skype, back and forth with Skype, or with Louise going, hey, this is happening here, what's the clothes? And I'm going, hey dude, she's supposed to be like 40 years old, because of the reason behind why she's the story. And he goes, oh, that one looks like a kind of like a 20-year-old teenager. I said, but don't get rid of it, because we're going to use her for another character, because she'll be perfect. Because I looked over, this is perfect for this other character. So like I said, we're having all this discussion, and what you see is only 10% of what we put out there in the comics, and that goes to like any good writer out there. I can't say for everybody, because I know that some people don't do that, and that's okay, right? But for me, I do a lot of research, and so that, because, and rounding back to what we're talking about, that has made me look at other countries and how they do things, and their belief systems, how they behave, how they interact with each other. Because if I'm going to put somebody in my character, a character from that country, I need to know that they're like basically, realistic to that country. Like in issue 2 of Zoolander, which is another book that's been worked on by Joachim from Sweden, right? And we're going to bring in a kind of like a samurai, like in his 20s, into this into Zoolander, which is fantastical world, right? Grabbing him out of like 1800s Japan, right? I think it's the Edo period, and I need to know what the friggin' Edo period is like. What do they dress like? How would they behave, right? And did you know, I didn't know this, but the females in that period, I think it was just before the Edo period, were actually trained to be samurais, like in case of, because they had to protect their home. If the mum, like dad and brothers, were out there fighting, or protecting the shogun on duty, and they were left home with the babies or children, and the mum or the elderly grandparents, or grandparent, female grandparent, right, and grandma, and they weren't able to defend themselves. The daughter of age 16, 15, whatever, 14, would have to know how to use a samurai. Used to blade, katana, right? How to use that, or how to use a short blade, right? Be able to take on men or attackers who were going to come and try to take their home, right? And so I had to know, because like in this story, I have a mom, a daughter, and a brother, right? And so, that's part of issue 2 comes in with that guy coming into this world of Zoolander and Fantastical Romy. And I do the research there. So all you see is like, oh, there's this guy here, and now he's here. So that's why I look at, that's why if you follow me on if you're part of my Facebook thing, you see me posting stuff about everywhere and everything, as well as art, and because I'm researching, and whenever I feel like I see something interesting, like that video there, I post it out because I find it interesting and I want to make people aware, because if you're not aware of my background, I used to be a youth group leader, right, for about almost 6 years of my life, dedicated and part-time. A year of that was paid, right, and 5 years was like volunteer, 20 hours to 30 hours a week volunteer, just looking after youth, right? And so I find like that kind of comes when you're doing that, you kind of become kind of in the learning side of, like, you become like a teacher unwillingly, right? Because you like teaching people and you sort of like take that on board. So that's 60 years of my life was just doing that, in my 20s, and early, late 20s and early, mid to late 20s. So, when I find stuff out like this, I want to share to make people aware of what's going on, that you just don't, unnecessarily buy stuff without really thinking about how it's affecting your community, right? How every cent you're spending on an online store is actually going away from your own community. And it's important to think about these things because there's long-term effects, right? Effects on your community. Like I said earlier on, it affects your family, wider family, extended family, or your friends and their families' livelihoods in the future, right? This is about income, about wages, about being able to earn a living. If you just spend money over online, what you're doing is that money's just going overseas. It's not helping anybody in your community. And like I said, I learned that from Dick Smith, right? Because he gave a whole about 20-minute talk about this, a 10-minute talk about this in 2018, 2019. And it came across on Facebook, and I was thinking, what's he talking about? And it was you early on, if you watch this again, rewind to that, because you find out what he says is very important about how online shopping affects your community and loss of income for your community. So
stores have recently been added to the United States Notorious Markets list. The U.S. Trade Representative's Office released a 2023 Notorious Markets list on January 30th, which includes Chinese platforms like WeChat, Taobao, and Pinduoduo, along with 7 physical markets, highlighting China as the world's largest source of counterfeit goods. The criteria for this year's Notorious Markets list focused on potential health and safety risks. This involves using low-quality materials and lacking regulatory oversight or safety controls, leading to products being non-compliant, ineffective, and hazardous.
Yeah.
Categories include children's toys and goods, vehicle parts, electronics, drugs and medical supplies, personal care products, clothing, and footwear. Furthermore, the sale of counterfeit drugs driven by...
If you think about counterfeit drugs, right? Fentanyl is the greatest destruction of the, one of the greatest, like I would say like top 2 in America right now, right? Addiction to fentanyl, right? Counterfeit drugs being laced with whatever, right? And this is the destruction of entire society, right? At the ground level. You got so many people because they got addicted to it. Now they're homeless. And not only them, think of how that affects their entire family, their social structure, which, like their family structure goes out into their social structure, extended family, and then goes into the village, as we say, right? Where it goes into the township, it's in the community, their connections to the community, and all gets affected. All the children, now they don't have the money to pay for food, pay for schooling, therefore lack of education, right? And then you see and then the dad's out there on the street, and next thing you know, mom's got to do things that she would not have done. Now she's forced to provide, right? And we see this, and we don't think about the downward spiral of friggin' just online shopping this way. And like I said, I look deep into these things because I want to see what's the end result, because that's how I work, right? As a storyteller, what's the end result of whatever story I'm telling? If there's a superhero, what happens if he does something? Like I said, I talk about how, when I look at say a superhero throwing a villain through a building, who's in that building at that time, right? If it's in the daytime, There's freaking workers in that building. So rather than like stopping, not even throwing, punching a guy through a building, old girl, right? Villains come in all shapes and sizes, and so, or genders. So if that's, or and so forth, right? You know what I'm talking about. So if that person's getting thrown for a building, who's in that building? There's a guy, working after hours and, trying to make a living. And this is why I find it like, I think in the sense of like with the main, superhero stories, why people are getting pulled away from that, like say, the mainstream, the top two, with Marvel and DC, is because there's no realism or there's no thought to anything else apart from the superheroes fighting. Now we're blowing up this. Now we're battling that guy. And now that, well, I don't want it to be boring, but I don't also want it to be just bang, 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 right? And so I kind of like really, like I say, think about the end result of everything that's done. And it's not something that I've always thought about. Like I remember like Nike, right? I'm reminded of Nike when I was doing back in like, gosh, must have been like about 94, right? When that whole thing with No Label came out with Naomi Klein. And I bought the book and I was reading and I was going, oh no, actually this was before I bought the book. And it was because after that I was like I started a streetwear label called Forgiven, right? I actually have some t-shirts and I'm actually wearing a pair of pants right now, 3/4 shorts from that period. And, with my label on. And so when we looked at the cost of Indonesia and the cost of producing, and I think the other night we were talking with, it was Henry, right, on Friday night with our Kiwis and comic books and Henry's from Aussie, and he was talking about like the East India Company in the 1700s, right, 1700s to 1800s, actually mainly in the 1800s, right, during the slavery period, and so and possibly after that as well, because I know when the slavery period ended, indentured labor started up, right? I know, especially in Fiji, we have a story called I can't remember what it was called. Was it Dirt? Yeah, I think it's Dirt or something else. No, I think it's a Gurmit. Sorry, my bad. It's a Gurmit. I've got a story coming up that I've completely written called the Gurmit, and it's about that period, about that indenture period. There's a 45 years where just after slavery ends, now comes an indenture period where you sign yourself away for 5 years to work, and they give you, your wages. However, because there's no longer slavery, right? You're not forced into it. You're not sold into it. However, it was just like slavery, right? So I actually didn't know about that until I was 35 years old, about the history of Fiji, right? Because I thought we'd always been there, because I left Fiji when I was very young. And so when I learned that, my brother, who's born in New Zealand, who's half Indian, half European, from mum's side, and he tells me, he goes, "Did you know about this?" And I was like, "What the hell are you talking about? I'm at film school." So I spent 5 years, right? I dedicated 5 years of learning about this, and I wrote a film out of it. Like we said, it was supposed to be a feature film, hour and a half feature film, and then I said, well, now that I'm making comics, I might as well just make a comic out of it. And so, like around about 2009, I started drawing it myself digitally, and I did maybe about 10 pages. I did the first volume or something, which I call like 22 pages. And sometime I'll go to an artist and we'll go right over it and we'll redo it again. And and that's something that I haven't thought about for about 5-6 years. But I'll show you something from there that I actually paid an artist friend of mine to do. Right, and this is an art piece that we're gonna release as a cover for it. It's painted with Indian ink, right? And so you can see here, I asked them that he could do a coin where, like here, where somebody's getting worked. That way, sorry, my bad. It's not gonna work. Let me do that. Right, so right here, right, and so there's a master whipping a worker, and so on a coin. And so it's basically, the story is like you're getting paid, but you're getting hurt, right? You're getting mistreated. So my friend Collins, I can't remember. James Collins did this artwork for me, and I actually gave him a whole bunch of stuff. I think I paid him. I'm not sure. I can't remember. It was like when I was at art school, which is like about 2006, right? That's like what, 18 years ago or something like that. Not art school, film school. So he's an artist, and he's gone into photography and stuff like that, and as well as painting, and he's pretty good. But I mean, that was going to be the cover for it, and but that's why I say, like, I do a lot of research on, and out of that came another story that we're going to be putting as part of Templeton, which is, the Templeton is basically our heaven and hell story, supernatural, crime story, and it's not a very happy story. It's not a very, fun story. It's like it's a lot of terrible things happen to it, and right, and so part of the second volume of that looks at that as well. It's kind of like just little bits and pieces. Oh, it's the third volume. I can't remember. I think it was Blackwaters. I think volume 2 is Blackwaters. So there's Rise and Fall, and then there's there's Torn. Sorry, there's Rise and Fall, then Torn, 2 issue, 1 shot or something like that. And then there was like Blackwaters, which is like about 130 pages each. Oh no, 90 pages each, which will probably translate to about 120 when we get into like 6 issues of comic, when we actually make a comic book out of it. So that's what I mean about researching. I really look into how I develop my characters and what they mean, because look, as I was talking to, as I interviewed earlier on today, George Valdez, right, from America, and he was talking about like his researching, and we're talking about character development and stuff like that. Like, why we spend a lot of time doing that is because we want people to see what we do as important, just as important as a movie, just as important as an album, just as important as a novel, because it is our life's work, and we only want to put out the best product. And if you like cut corners, people will see that as like, well, that's not taking it seriously, and it's not important. And I find that like, talking to all these other creatives, it's actually making me understand the medium I'm working in and take it a bit more, take it more seriously, and actually, learn and get better at my craft as I keep going, because I'm not instantly going to be good. But however, in the last 10 years, since, when I first started this, thinking about doing comics in 2007, because of my accident, I really thought about like, what is it that I'm going to tell as part of comic books? And it was based at the start, I wasn't taking it that seriously, in the sense it was just, I'll just do this and I'll do that. And then like later on, I was like, no, this is where I want to tell my stories, right? Like especially in 2018, I went, when I started putting together Plunge Enterprises, with the different things we do, like running a convention, running a website, running a publishing, studio, running this, and as well as like trying to open doors for everybody else in my community to get into comics, especially because we have our voice as well. So what I did was, for the first thing I did was come up with a slogan, straight after like trying to work on like what was going. And I said it was our stories, our way. Right. Story came first, not our way came first. Stories came first. So that's why when I talk about stories, I say we put stories first, because it's, that's what our publishing, our studio is about. Because I'm actually the guy who does all the writing at the moment, apart from a couple, a couple cool comic strips that Michael Mead has done. He's another Kiwi writer for PJ and Shibi. I do all the writing, and so it's all on me to make sure that it works good. And I also do the design and also do the lettering. So that's kind of like, the research part of that. So let's get back to this video.
By high profits not only troubles the public, but also poses challenges for border enforcement officers. According to the official website of the U.S. Trade Representative, this year's list revealed 39 online market platforms and 33 physical market platforms. These platforms come from 18 different countries, and they are either participating in or aiding trademark counterfeiting or copyright piracy activities. The 39 online markets that were named include Taobao from China's Alibaba, Tencent's instant messaging software WeChat, Baidu's cloud storage service Baidu NetDisk, DHgate, and Pinduoduo, which were all relisted.
Asian-based, right?
Shopee, headquartered in Singapore, also made the list, along with India's 3 major online platforms. This marks the 10th consecutive year that Taobao has been included in the notorious markets list and the 2nd year for Pinduoduo. AliExpress and the WeChat e-commerce ecosystem, both with international online retail service platforms, were listed for the first time in 2022 for fostering a large amount of trademark counterfeiting. The 33 physical markets come from 18 different countries, including China, Vietnam, India, and the Philippines. Notable among them, 7 Chinese markets were named: Shenzhen's Huaqiangbei Electronics Commercial Area, Beijing's Silk Street Market, Shanghai's Xinwang International Clothing Wholesale Market, Guangzhou's Danxing Watch Market, Liaoning's Y Market, Shenzhen's Luohu Commercial City, and Guangzhou's Xinbaijie Online Wholesale Market.
So here's the thing: like in our thirst, and I've said like earlier on that I have been part of the cause for this, right? Is that our need to get cheaper product and look good in that product, right? Because hey, I can't afford a $90 or $150 soccer shirt, but I can get a couple for a couple bucks if it's a knockoff, right? And I remember my dad telling me that he was wearing a Manchester United shirt, and a child, basically went, "That's a knockoff. That's not the real thing." And my dad was so shamed after that he basically, stopped buying. From my understanding is that didn't buy any more like fake products, especially because he's a soccer fan, right? And so one of my things I would do when I would go to every trip to Fiji is I'd buy a soccer shirt. Didn't matter which country it came from. It just I have a collection of them because I just like the look of it. And I just thought it was just like one of my rituals. Like every time I go to Fiji, I'll grab a soccer shirt, maybe $5 or $10 or $2, right? However, those are knockoffs, right? And here's the thing: if you come from like a kind of like a developing, and which Fiji is, not China. China is not a developing country. It's a freaking superpower. And I'll tell you that next video that we put up about how like it's this whole clause they're using to destroy local economies and merchants and businesses by using the whole developing country status to get you free product, yet to import their free product over by using like Temu and all that. You'll get in there, oh, it's free, or it's very cheap, freight. But locally, you're paying arm and a leg, and each year or each 6 months or whatever, your freaking freight cost for the same thing is going higher and higher. So this used to cost like say about $1.80 to send around New Zealand. Now same thing is like about $3.50. Right? Or depending on the size or the thickness of it, it's $5. Or if it's like a bit, like a trade paperback, now it's $8. But if you got there from China, it's free. Right? So our own workers are not receiving any income for working by carting the stuff around. You can see what the downside of that is when people, why you see people throw it, it's just in the sense is that you can't understand people's frustration, especially like, couriers and stuff, when they find that like this stuff from there is coming cheap and there's no income being paid for them extra for carting that crap around, right? Whereas if they're carting in local and like say Western countries, they actually is adding to their to the business and adding to them getting paid. So if everybody's getting like saying, hey, I'm going to buy fake goods, if I'm going to buy from China, if I'm going to buy from online and not from my community, well, like I said, that money just goes overseas. It doesn't go into your community and doesn't help that guy carting your thing around. He's not going to, his wages are going to be stalled because there's no income coming in from more, for freight payments to him, right? However, we ourselves are getting charged arm and a leg because we're basically paying for the free freight that China gets, right? But for bringing their, fake goods, knockoffs, whatever, because at a low cost, because we're so freaking wanting cheaper products, right? Because we want to be able to buy more and more, right? And I understand that. I'm in that boat, right? And I've had to really think about that harshly to myself the last few months, thinking like, I'm going to change the way I do things, then I need to know why I'm going to change my way I do things. And I started looking into where does this all come down to, right? How do we, the West, get exploited by Chinese manufacturers, right? How are we getting, we're not only just getting exploited by sort of low end knockoff products and cheap and like fake and actually dangerous products a lot of times, right? As I showed earlier, where like you got a charger that explodes, right? My lamp that melted, right? Started melting and smoke started pouring out, and stuff like that. And a wedding gift, right? Especially the wedding gift gets freaking start doing it. Go, how do you go back to your uncle and go, hey, that wedding gift you gave us almost burnt down the place, right? Now he's going to feel bad. He's going to say, I actually almost harmed my nephew and his wife, and he's going to feel bad about it. So this is like the downward spiral of these things that we, how I say, like, it's not actually just harming us overseas, it's harming the community there. You look at all the dangerous foods and fake foods that they're doing there, the amount of cancers those guys in China are actually having. There was like a whole series of shit just went down massively with diseases and like cancers in China over Christmas, right? Leading into Christmas, November, October, into December. And it was just crazy. Like the hospitals were just getting like, this guy's got 5 different types of cancer. How the hell? Babies are like in hospitals. Like my son just got, my daughter just stopped breathing. It was crazy. And the whole thing is a lot of people don't know about this because they're not seeing it in the news headlines, right? Because China controls what goes out. And if you understand that part of it, how they will just remove whatever negative press, or even like not even negative, just like people saying, hey, what's going on with it? Boom, that's gone, right? That's why I say the whole WeChat thing with X wanting to, Elon Musk saying everything, we could do everything online, just like, using X, to do your banking, to do your license, hold your license information, all this. I'm like, I'm not keen for that because I've seen what WeChat is doing to the Chinese people themselves and how they've been governed by their own government who abuses them, right? And remember, this is after 60 million people died during the droughts, right? Because they went to communism, where they made farmers become teachers, and then they made lawyers become farmers, because everybody's got to be able to social. There's a whole social thing. It doesn't work. Reality means that sort of shit. Oh, we'll just use communism. It's never been properly done. It's like it's always been properly done. The end result is death. Millions and millions and millions and millions of death. Anywhere it's been done, it's always resulted in death, because it's about like everybody should be all the same. Listen, when everybody's the same, there's no growth in anything. Everything becomes stagnant, and therefore, when you have teachers trying to grow carrot, right, or tomato, or potato, or rice, they have no experience in it, right? However, if you've got a farmer who's like 10 years old, the kid knows when's the season to lay, to dig up the ground, because he's watched his granddad, he's watched his dad do that, and he's experienced. But then you go, no, you need to go learn technology, and there's no farmer on the land. And that's why communism always fails, right? And I think a lot of people in the West have no clue as to this because they're not educated. They don't actually talk to people who are out of that country. They don't look at the reasoning behind why all those deaths happen. You can look at, you got Russia, right? What is it? Is it France? No, who was it? Ceausescu, right? That's Romania. You had, was it Argentina, right? Mao, of course, with China. There was, gosh, who else was it? it was in Europe. I can't remember the thing of it, but like he's like the one of the godfathers of freaking communism, like one of the key people. But a lot of people don't educate themselves about things they speak about, right? Like especially this generation has no idea about how to be conservative in conservation, right? Why you should like clean up around your house, right? Pick up the rubbish around your place, because that extends out. So people see you picking that rubbish up and going, why are you doing that? Well, because I want my area tidy. Oh, now they feel guilty. It's not because you're forcing them to feel guilty, but they see your area clean, so might as well clean my area too. And that expands, and so people become more conservative and conservationists and environmentalists by doing that. Not by throwing friggin', paint on paintings that you couldn't even lift a finger, an ounce of creativity in your life to come up with that, their artwork. And that's why I hate these activist environmentalists, because they didn't grow up like we did, which was like, hey, go pick up the rubbish and then on the road, right? I remember and it's always stuck to me, right? We had a whole thing about in the 80s in New Zealand, where we took the morning, and it was like you had the morning and then the other classes had the afternoon. So like half your class went into the morning and the other half went into the afternoon. We'd go along the street, along the main road from our town to the school, like where we were, and then somebody would do the next town, right? And so on. And so we'd clean the highway, and we'd go in there and pick up, have a bag, and we'd put rubbish in 2 by 2, two people with that side, 2 people with this side of the road, and we'll go up the highway picking up rubbish. This is us at 13, 14 years old, right? Being ingrained that we need to be tidy Kiwis. We need to look after our environment. Keep New Zealand green was a huge thing. Now it's not a big thing anymore. I don't know what's being taught in our schools now, because I know I see rubbish anywhere, everywhere. Plastics bottles everywhere, glass bottles, plastic, I'm not sure if you're watching from overseas, but, what we call pies, right? Little pie bags, like meat pies, and it's just all over the place. Like McDonald's, box, everything's there, right? The worst day is rubbish day because it gets blown around. And so if you're not tidying up your own little environment, don't for the life of yourself make an idiot of yourself and try to be, I'm an activist sitting in, blocking people's roads, right? Because they have a life to live. They need to get to places, and all you're doing is being an idiot and a moron who probably isn't cleaning up around your own house, in your own community. And I think that if you really think about it, that exposes all of these activists, because everybody likes that clout of doing big things, but nobody wants to do something in their community. Because listen, like they used to say, charity begins at home, right? Being a conservationist, environmentalist begins in your own little area. And I think that's why it offends me when I see that, because I think you're not even doing it around your own area. I like to recycle. It's been my thing. I wash out bags, plastic bags, so I could use it again. Because I'll put it through the dishwashing, then rinse it out, and then dry it off, and then put it back in. Use it for fridge or vegetable stuff. That's how I do it, because I do it in my own place. So that there's not more plastic going out into the rubbish bin all the time. And I think even like food cartons, right? Like you get those little food containers. I go to my sister's place and I grab them from her because she gets them all the time. And even her place, she reuses them for kids' lunches, right? Or taking things somewhere else. These carton things, you don't have to use them and throw them away, like especially plastic. And I think, I even use like drinking bottles, like plastic bottles like this. Look, this is like a pump, not a pump. What is that? Like a Gatorade type thing. Wash it out, soap and all that, and then reuse it, because sometimes if you don't wash the nozzle, it can get like fungus and all that, with food getting left in it. So you got to clean it up. After like about 4 or 5 uses, I throw it out, because at least I got that to wash. So I'm not going to, that's why I say it begins at home, guys. Don't try to do big works and not do things around your home, do things around your community, and if everybody did that, New Zealand would be clean. Your own city and wherever you live would be clean. And you'd be proud of it because you look along and you go, wow, this is so clean, so beautiful now. When like last year wasn't, right? Or last week wasn't. And I think that's something that we've lost because all we want to do is get the internet cloud. I remember seeing this video. It just got a reminder, right? I saw this video of these models, right? YouTube models or something, or Instagram models. Basically, they grabbed the black bag, and so they went and they were taking a video to show people how cool, how environmentalist they were, and they went to the beach and picked up all the stuff, and then once they did the video, they left it there in the plastic bag and walked off. And the guy's filming this, like going, "What's going on here?" And then he realizes, like, wait, are you just gonna leave that there? The plastic bag that wasn't there before, and all they did was for clout. And this is exactly how I see these people doing this whole, standing up and protesting, because nothing is real with these people. They're fakers. They're just ones like, oh, I want to be in the news. I want to get on the news channel. I want to get on the radio. I want to get that 15 minutes of fame by doing this. Listen, like I said, I myself have to, clean up around my own place, pick up rubbish around myself, recycle myself, and then I'll tell anybody else to do that. And I don't even need to do that. I just hope that people would do that, because it's and here's the thing. When we were, because when we were growing up, we were shown examples from our home for our parents, right? Like I mentioned before, Dad would get, recycled products to build fences for chooks. Other people I'd see they'll go and buy a brand new product. But me and Dad would be out there recycling nets, chicken fence netting, kind of like metal iron things, get corrugated iron from old buildings and stuff, and build things, old timber and stuff, and build it ourselves. And it worked just fine, right? But that guy over there was spending $100. Dad was spending $10, right? And so because Dad was thinking, if I buy, if we put it ourselves, then I can go to Fiji for a trip, right? And that sort of thing. It's like, oh, I can buy, our kids this, I can get that. And so that's how I've learned myself to do it as well, right? I've got a saw, I've got a freaking hammer, I've got nails, I've got screwdrivers. So if I need to build something, I'll build it myself, right? Otherwise, if I find something cheaper, then I'll go buy that. And I think this whole idea of buying everything online has made us forget our own communities and how that affects us. So let's carry on with this video, right?
In Shenzhen is well known as a major electronics distribution hub in China and is notorious as one of the country's 4 major centers for counterfeit goods. Thanks to Shenzhen's status as an electronics manufacturing base and the area's trade in parallel imports from Hong Kong, Huaqiangbei has become a go-to destination for 3C digital products. Shoppers here have access to incredibly low-priced electronics and cosmetics, which may have questionable origins in the malls during the daytime. Additionally, the ghost markets that come alive at night in this area offer perfect replicas of a range of luxury items, including fake versions of high-end Dyson hair dryers. In this video, we can see that apart from its plastic exterior and lighter weight, the fake Dyson hair dryer looks identical to the authentic product. Counterfeit merchants can even match the weight of the fake to the real item by adding weights, making it difficult for a non-professional to distinguish between the two. But these counterfeit merchants even convince customers to buy fakes with the reasoning that if you paid real money, it's real. It's said that many products made in China are a mix of authentic and fake, to the point where even a pair of shoes can be a mix, with the left shoe being authentic and the right one fake. Even experts may not be able to tell the difference. However, Shenzhen's Huaqiangbei electronics market is not the only large-scale fake and knockoff market in China. Other notorious havens for counterfeits include Yiwu in Zhejiang and Putian in Fujian. There are also many well-known counterfeit capitals that have not yet been recognized by foreigners or included on the notorious markets list. such as Guangzhou's Beiyun district, known for fake leather bags, Suzhou for fake cosmetics, Qingdao for knockoff foreign trade clothing, Tianjin for counterfeit bicycles, and Tongxiang in Zhejiang for fake silk quilts. As a manufacturing powerhouse, China was once a primary manufacturing base for many renowned foreign brands. These factories have turned their original equipment manufacturer technologies into profitable channels, selling defective or sampled goods on online shopping platforms like Taobao and Pinduoduo. Some even developed their own counterfeit product lines, selling knockoffs worldwide. During the pandemic, Chinese online shopping enterprises like AliExpress and Pinduoduo's overseas version, Temu, expanded rapidly internationally with super low price products. They tempted consumers abroad who were struggling with high prices, and as a result, retail markets in many countries like the US and South Korea are being rapidly eroded by Chinese products. With the lifting of COVID restrictions, foot traffic to physical markets has rebounded, and counterfeit goods have also resurfaced. Some retailers use physical storefronts just as a cover to communicate with customers, test samples or products, and complete online transactions. Knockoff products from China can be said to be ubiquitous. For counterfeiters, there's nothing they can't replicate. These knockoff products have spread globally through online shopping platforms, contributing significantly to China's status as the world's top producer of counterfeit products. According to the U.S. Trade Representative's Office, China remains the largest source of counterfeit goods globally. Counterfeit and pirated goods from China, along with goods transshipped through Hong Kong, accounted for 60% of the value of counterfeit and pirated goods seized by U.S. Customs and Border Protection in 2022. According to the U.S. Intellectual Property and Counterfeit Goods Review, in 2020, the global loss due to counterfeit goods is at least $1.7 trillion US dollars, with counterfeit products also causing the loss of 2.5 million jobs worldwide. Aside from luxury goods, consumer electronics are among the most popular
jobs. And so was that 2.5 million jobs worldwide, right? So every time you kind of like shop online, and especially at these things, these major online stores, someone in your community is getting less pay. Someone in your community has just lost his job or her job, right? And that also leads this automatic cashier thing is costing jobs and income and wages to entire families, right? Not entire. What I mean by that is, like, say, mom or dad or whatever cousin was working last year at a supermarket. So at that supermarket, there was a person at the teller, right, cashier, and then there was someone bagging in for you, right? So between the two, now there's a computer, right? There's like an electronic cashier, right? Now you're the one who's working for them, right? So you're the one who's now the bagger, and now you're the cashier, and you feel good about it because you don't have to worry about dealing with that person at the counter or get that person bagging your goods wrong. Oh, he's put the eggs at the bottom, or she's done that. Or it's like, oh, the bread's in the wrong. That's two people's jobs that you're doing now, right? Because now those two people who had the job is gone because electronics, the robot has come in, right? And so the other thing about these jobs were, and this is something I've been, I've had conversations with adults, right? Like every time, once a week, as I mentioned, I go and do my shopping, and my friend Jason goes with me. We spend like about 4 hours walking around and having conversations about things that we've both been thinking about, what's going on in his life, what's going on in my life. And I'm usually talking about this sort of stuff, like, here's what I'm doing in the comics, that's what I'm going to be doing with this and that, or this is what I saw online, because he's not online that much, right? So he's not on Facebook or anything, and doesn't do social media that much, but he's a gamer, right? And so we talk about games. So I get that sort of like, insight into things that I don't do, which is like games and stuff. And, and gaming and all the games that are coming out, and also animes. Like sometimes I don't have time to watch certain animes because I don't watch the type of animes that he does, which he likes a lot of like, kind of like comedy sort of things. He likes that sort of like happy joy kind of thing, like One Piece or, Black Clover and stuff, which I enjoyed, by the way. I love Black Clover. And some things that we cross over on, but I get to have his thoughts on things as well. He's like about 20 years younger than me. Yeah, about 20 years younger than me, right? So it's kind of like gives me an idea of Gen Y, mindset and things. And then he gets, hears about my over the top, ideas and like, and my thinking and where what I think about, like, with this world sort of view that I have, because I've trained myself to have a global view for the last 20 odd, about like almost 25 years now, because when I went to film school, like in 2003, I was taught, 2004, I should say, I was basically taught by Americans. One of my tutors was Karen Love, and she made me look outside, right? She said, hey, listen. And before her, I just realized, like in 2000, there was another, when I was writing, and I was thinking about writing and like novels and stuff, one of the guys who said, who was a Kiwi, but made it really big overseas in the global market, but lived in America. He said, listen, if you're going to write for the entire world. Stop writing, just think about your community here, because if you're going to do, let it be so that the way you write, the stories can be enjoyed and, read by anybody, anywhere. And they could feel it's like about them. So if I'm writing a story about New Zealand, it can be about New Zealand, but the way you tell the story, it's where people can go, oh, that's like my cousin over there, or that's like my mum, or that's how my mum behaves, or that's what that guy, our mayor behaves the same way. And that's what when you do that. So she taught me like how to think outside of just New Zealand experiences. And I thought that's pretty cool. Like within like about 4 years, I was like thinking, yeah, there's people, like very smart people are telling me to have a world view about things, not just to be here. And so that's why, talk a lot about overseas stuff, and I'll especially on my Facebook, but I don't like get deep into it because it's just, people are on Facebook to see cool things and joke and laugh at things. And I do that as well. But so I was with Jason, and we're talking about this whole idea of, what I'm going to put on next, which is we're basically being expected to, help China develop, even though they're a superpower, right? And they keep saying, "Oh, we are a superpower. We got a huge military. We got all this," and then they tell us that, oh, they can't afford to pay freight to get their product over here. We have to pay the freight for their product. Oh, and at the same time, while we're doing that, they're destroying our economy. And I mean economy by people earning a living, right? Being employed and all that. So, let's have a watch of this. So this is what's been coming up. So we're looking at China Truths before, and this is a video from previously. The other video was from China Observer, right? So give them both a follow. So let's have a look at China. And I'll link, this is China Truth. So I'll link that so you guys can check that out if you're interested in this, right? I think you should be if you care about your community, right? Like your city, your towns, and the economy of that, right? Especially businesses, and how a lot of people don't think about business as actual people being affected by that, right? And so I'm going to play a video later on, but from a toy collector, and he talks about that, which kind of will run things up a little bit later. So this is the U.S. to World Bank and loans to China. China's real estate crisis. So the first we want to look at is U.S. pushes for China, for World Bank to end loans to China in efforts to suppress CCP. That kind of sounds, it's basically, when you think about it, why are we helping a country that's actually like costing 2.5 million jobs outside, and $1 trillion in losses to our own manufacturers. Because like I say, we have manufacturers who have moved their manufacturing plants to China when, only a decade ago they were in New Zealand, right? And so that's like employed people in New Zealand don't have jobs who are high skilled in that because these are gone overseas. And that's why I say it's affecting our communities. So let's have a look at this.
U.S. pushes for World Bank to end loans to China in effort to suppress CCP. China's iron rice bowl cracks. Millions face job losses over next decade. Report: China's real estate crisis is far from bottoming out. House prices have only fallen by half. Great Depression, office vacancy rates in Beijing and Shanghai hit record highs. Chinese-made EV owners struggle for power during Lunar New Year. It's all covered in today's China Truths. U.S. pushes for World Bank to end loans to China in effort to suppress CCP. The World Bank is known for its support to impoverished countries via loans. Meanwhile,
and this is what I was saying right at the start, using the whole, we're a third world country, but like Jason was saying, and they say they're an impoverished country, they're developing. However, there are billionaires there, multi-millionaires there. They have fastest growing economy. We're a superpower, we're this, we're that. You will build your bridges, we'll build your train tracks, we'll build your homes, your infrastructure outside of China, right? And we find the materials they build it with are cheap, very bad, and there's an actual name for that, tofu drag, right? Because of Chinese products, that where buildings are just falling down, because of the crappy product like bricks, iron, that should be able to hold up buildings are breaking. You can just snap the irons, right?
Chinese Communist Party boasts about eliminating poverty nationwide, all while extending its financial influence abroad and benefiting from the World Bank's low-interest loans.
Yeah. So the other thing here is with China, they'll go into a country and give you loans. Like weird, right? These guys are getting loans from the West, from the World Bank, but then they'll go into a community like in Fiji, right, in the islands. Oh, we'll build your ports. It's like, we'll buy this, we'll buy that. How? Because the West is giving them loans on the backs of Western people, right? People who are paying taxes and into this whole thing, right? And their businesses and so on. I'm not too, up in that area because that sort of taxes and stuff I don't really understand, but I do understand business, right? We're paying like a levy for carbon tax, right? A small country like us, 5 million people, but we're paying huge carbon taxes to the international thing, whereas China just carries on polluting and nobody holds them to task, right?
During a House Financial Services Committee hearing on February 6th, U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen has indicated that the Biden administration is actively advocating for the World Bank to cease its lending to China. This stance taken by the Biden administration is indicative of the broader perspective held by the United States and Western countries towards the sea.
Now, it's not Biden who started this. It was Trump who started this, right? Biden's just following on because it's a good thing to do, and it's an important thing to do. And and everybody, remember when Trump was saying, hey, we need to get our businesses back into America, and the same thing was here. It was like, well, why are we not bringing our businesses back to New Zealand? Because if you do that, that's helping our own economy. It's helping our own young learn their skills, right? Become engineers, because we are pushing all our young into, especially our females, into STEM, right? Science, technology, economics, and what was it, maths, right? Engineering and maths or something like that, right? But if there's no jobs for them, if there's no manufacturing, if there's no technology plants here or something like that, how are they going to go? How are they going to further up the field, right? It's like misnomer or something. I don't know what the word is. I can't, I know what I mean, but I don't remember the words because of the head injuries I've had. Like, just
CCP.
let them come right.
Professor Xie Tian from the University of South Carolina's Darla Moore School of Business shared insights, noting, initially, there is minimal interest from Biden in boosting the World Bank's capital because the CCP also holds positions within the World Bank and the International Monetary and Financial Committee. An increase in capital would likely...
Talking about higher, right? Like, over Christmas, my fridge door, like my fridge door, basically the freezer door, because I got the fridge at the top and freezer at the bottom, wouldn't shut anymore, right? I've had it for we found out, I got it for my sister 6 years ago. It's a hand-me-down, right? When I moved into this unit, into my studio. And so she had this really, it's a Westinghouse, right? Since about 2008, maybe, right? And then I had it after her for the last 6 years. So almost, I think it was about 16 years we counted. The other day we were over there, the other weekend, and I just said, yeah, I had just replaced it. And I was looking, it was like, this is a Fisher Paykel company. I was like, oh yeah, we're going to get it from Fisher Paykel and stuff. Okay, cool. Next thing, something else arrives. I'm like, this isn't Fisher Paykel. Right, now let me just check what it is, right? Just to make sure. Yeah. And sure enough, Steve, it's higher. It's a higher, right? Fisher Paykel, but it's a higher product. And, and so I got a replacement and everything. But one of the things about this is that one of my best friends in Auckland, his dad worked at Fisher Paykel, right? In Otara. Is it South Auckland? Yeah, South Auckland, Otara, right? And that's where they had it there. It's like, I think it's Pilkington Road or something like that. They had it. And yeah. So his dad, who had probably been there for about 30 odd years or 20 years, I think, suddenly job gone. Right, so he had to go find job somewhere else. No security. That's the thing about this thing is no job security, because you don't know now which manufacturer is going to go elsewhere, and that sort of puts a bit of uncertainty. And you talk about kids nowadays don't have a future, or they don't think they have a future. Well, this is because of it. When they see all this everything oh, I can't get a job in a local place because everybody's buying online. It's like, well, how am I going to? Where my job at? And talking about that, there's also this about kids, right? There's also this thing about how Polynesian and Maori people push their kids into arts and sports. Yet both those things are uncertain. And even though I love arts and I love sports, I used to be really good at sports until I had my accident. So I don't, for the last 15, 16 odd years, I don't do much running at all because it hurts to run. But I've been very active. And so I'm not poo-pooing on sports people, because I'm a huge fan of sports and stuff, and being, because it's all about skill, right? I'm always all about skill, because in art, same thing. You're upskilling, right? You're getting books like this to learn how to, draw people in movement and stuff, learning how things look, right? How things should shape, right? Because how it should be out there. And so you're skilling yourself. So I'm never going to poo-poo on either, on sports ever. Because I used to play rugby when I was younger, and, as well as league and basketball and volleyball and golfing, right, as well. So I understand all that. However, it seems for Polynesian and Maori communities, the easy thing to do is art and sports, and not get into STEM. And I don't mean in a negative way, because I just spoke about STEM, right? And I mean that actually going, hey, you should actually think about that, and then have art and sports as an extra credit type thing, like not an extra thing, but still do that, right? Just like I say, like if you're going to do digital, do traditional as well, right? Art-wise, right? If you're going to draw digitally, do traditional as well, because you got to have a balance to that, so that when somebody rocks up, that you can actually draw something. I can't, so that's why I don't do drawings anymore. I just go, I'm a writer, right? I'll create all that. You know, I'll put together something like this. I'll show you. Give me one sec. It's going to take me a bit. Come on. It's the time it takes me to do this stuff. All right, let's go with that. Should have put a video on. So right, so here we go. Right, so this is what I would do. Right, I'm like as it because like this is, you know, comics and ramblings, right? So this is what I do, right? I go, okay, here, all right, dude. Here's my design. Sorry about that, about moving there. I'm just trying to move it so I can see it. This is, I'll just take a picture and I'll take a, you know, I'll get my, you know, I'll get my either my digital pen, or I'll get my, if I'm lazy and I can't even be bothered attaching my tablet to it, I'll basically go around the, you know, I'll go around here and I'll shape it around and angle it up, and that's my design. And then I'll go to the artist. I go here, right? And I'll give them an idea of what we're looking at. It's not actually called the Holy Trinity Church anymore. It's called the Holy Polyhedron, something like that. The religion that we've got, you know. And I go, this is for the female, this is for the male, and that's how I want it to look, and that's the color scheme. Like you'll see, there's two strips, you know, strips on the female, and there's only one on the male, and you know, it's on the side. So there's a bit of difference, and there's also a strip around on the shoulders for the females, you know, in the color scheme. That's what I would do now, right? If I, you know, and I won't even draw it by hand. I'll just get my tablet out and pop it out there to give the artist, because that's their job, right? Because that's their skill set that they bring to it. That's why I say about skill, right? Getting back to that. So I think we do our kids injustice by pushing them to take a second place kind of thing, almost in their heads already. You're not good at sport, or you're not good at maths, or you're not good at English, or whatever, it's science. Just do sports. You'll be fine. It'll be okay. Rather than saying, hey, apply yourself a bit more, but carry on doing your sports. And that's why we see a lot of kids just like low-income jobs and like frustrated because they're seeing their white European classmates. Hey, what are you doing? Oh, I'm a science teacher. Oh, where you? Oh, I'm going to university. Oh, what you doing? Oh, I'm going to go work in a manufacturing plant as an engineer. Oh, and what that creates is a hate towards, it's kind of like racism towards white people, right? As they grow up. Oh, you know, my friggin' friends now doing that. And there's like, you know, this bitterness rises up. And that's why, like, you know, when I have like people who start going on about how, you know, oh, the past, the white people were doing this, and I go, well, we're not in the past no more. I understand we've done that, and I have a better understanding of that because of my research, right, into our history, and also into, you know, a lot of Pacific Island history, right? So I understand that a lot, but I also don't want people to start saying, hey, you know what, white man bad, and that being an excuse, or why should I try hard if the white guy's going to get a job because they applied themselves? And I think we are really hurting our kids' futures by saying, oh, just because, you know, that guy might get a better job because of that, his guy doesn't make an excuse for you not to apply yourself, you know. And the worst thing I saw of this was, but I had a friend who was into art saying, oh, that's because of this, because Polynesians, I think, and Islanders and Maori are good at sports and art. I'm like, I still felt really bad because, you know, sitting there with all these prefects, and the kids who are going to be getting scholarships, realizing that all the Polynesians and the Maori were at sports or arts, and all the Europeans, Indians, and Asians were going to university, were going to all this other high-end, applying themselves to high-end jobs in maths and science and technology, right? And what was the other one? Yeah, maths, science, technology, and economics, right? Business. And I'm looking at them going, this is wrong. This is really wrong. And this was like 2018, this happened to me. It was all prefects. And I was the oldest one there, and I'm looking around going, God, I'm not thinking to myself, this is not cool, right? And it's like, 6 years ago. And I still feel the same way, even, because there is a huge struggle to try to make it in arts and sports. What if you get injured? If you don't know how to run your business, how to save, how to invest as a sports person, that's it. You're injured, right? And now you got to learn to get another job, to do something else. And I think, that's why I say we do a real huge disservice to our youth right now because of that, and how we just cut them short of the way we look at things now. I remember my dad, was always there with me, and I feel sad for people who don't have that. Like I'm talking about my stepdad, right? Like 7 years after, later, I have a new dad, but he always was, and I appreciate him more and more every time now. But he'll be there with a hammer and saying, use this way, right? Or it's going to hurt your hand. Use the sword this way. Oh, this is what we're going to do here with the nail and all this, or how, building and learning all those skills, so that now at 50, at 40, I'm able to do that. At 20, I was able to do that. I could, get jobs at learning how to sandpaper, right? For picture frames, like I'm talking about Kauri and Rimu and stuff like that, really expensive wood, and working on that as a part-time job, right? Or sorry, as a full-time job, I should say, because I had that skill working with him growing up. And so, being practical, right? Learning practical skills is more important sometimes with just learning technical skills, whatever, because at least that way you can fall back onto something practical. Today I was baking, right? Using ready-made mixes, and I was I had a pack of pancakes that I only used, made 2 pancakes out of, because I have the element I use doesn't really heat up and stay hot. It's kind of goes down again because it's for apartment. It's not, so it doesn't burn or something like that. So I just don't I could have pancakes for breakfast whenever I want, but because of that element, I didn't. It was just sitting there all wrapped up, and I thought, I wonder if I can turn this pancakes into a cake mix and make a cake. So sure enough, got onto Google, searched that, and said, yep, that's what you need. You need an egg, you need to have 100 grams of sour cream, sugar, you need milk, you need cream, and all of which I had, except for I only had half the amount of sour cream, so I put in, milk and doubled it up with milk, and I made a cake using a friggin', a recipe for pancakes. I'll show you, right? So you can actually see that I'm, that's real. Right. So this is the buttermilk, recipe, because when I was younger, I'd watch my mom cook, right, at our home. I'd cook around the house, and then I went and did early on, I went and did a year and about a year's worth of my first chef spa, right, and cooking and stuff. And then afterwards, I went and worked in a factory after taking a year off, and I think I did data processing as part of a course as well for 6 months. And then after the 6 months was over, I got shipped out to Auckland, and I've talked about that before, and started working in a factory in Bexley. So this is basically a cake mix made out of a pancake mix because there's a recipe online to do that. So I went and put in I did a half a mix in, and then I went and put in a layer of chips because I ran out of what did I run out of? I can't remember what I went to get today. I went, I forgot what I actually went to buy, and because I had needed to get something. Oh, butter. I ran out of butter, right? So I ran out of New Zealand butter. So I decided, well, I need to go get butter. So when I went and got butter, I went and got chocolate chips. So when I laid this thing made from friggin', a pancake mix, right? And made it into a cake. I layered a layer of chocolate chip, right? So you can actually just see the chip poking out there, right? And so while I'm, just felt like cooking today, I thought I could do that. And now I have, because of watching my mom cook and also doing, early on, as a teenager, I learned doing a study, actually going to study as a chef, learning practical skills. I was able to, cook, right? And bake myself a cake, right? A chocolate chip cake made from a pancake mix, right? Because, like I said, I don't have the right element to keep a steady heat for my pancakes. I can, however, use a iron, what is it called, a wrought iron pan, which my mom gave me for I think a birthday or Christmas present, where I cook my steaks on, because the iron itself will hold the heat really well for making steaks on. And sometimes I use it for because it allows for browning of kind of lightly browning, sauteing your vegetables. I use that as well. It's only like a friggin' very, very small, like this size, like this size, right? About the size of my fist, my outstretched fingers. That's how big the pan is, and so the size of the element, right? So, but pancakes don't work on that well. So that I thought, well, rather than throwing this out and letting it go off or something, is there a recipe online? That's why I say I love the time we live in, because I can just Google something and I have an answer within a couple of seconds. If that one doesn't work, the first one I saw didn't give me the right amount of product ingredients. Okay, next one. 2 cups of this, which was there because I'd already eaten about 2 pancakes out of it, and it was just over 2 cups, and boom, now I've got a freaking cake. I can have that with my ice cream or dessert the rest of the week. Or maybe give some to Jason when I see him on Wednesday or something, or whenever I see him, right? Say, hey, here's a cake. And that's what I talk about, having practical skills. And a lot of things now we're teaching our kids to get all technical, rather than standing next to them going, hey, mom and dad or whatever, hey, I'm cooking some food. Come and watch me cook so you can learn. Then I'm going to let you cook it next time so you can feed us. And then we can critique you what you need to do or something. Yeah, it is. And that's why, when, I always think way back when I was doing YouTube, right, as I mentioned, and I'm not sure if you saw that, Steve, that when I first started doing YouTube, which was 2007, and I stopped because I couldn't stand for too long after that, I did about 5 shows with just cooking. That's because it wasn't about comics or anything. It was just me cooking in my kitchen at that time, right? And that's what I put up online. And so for me, I was about 30 or something. That's 20 or no, 15 years ago, 16 years ago, I think it was 17 years. I think it was ago when YouTube was just getting started. But I've actually posted the end of a minute of shorts that I've done, and people have hundreds of views, right, on these shorts. So I thought well, I could, if people want, I'll do longer, step by step sort of what I'm doing with this, or I just will do the 1 minute videos. And cooking with comics. Yeah, well, the one I did was No Fear Cooking, right? And that's what I've always called it from the start, was No Fear Cooking with Aru, or No Fear Cooking. Because I don't want people, because the idea behind it was you shouldn't be afraid to cook. And the fear of cooking comes by not actually learning at home with your mom and dad and, watching your mom and dad cook. Because that takes away all the fear. Because you go, oh, mom made a mistake. Oh, okay, I can make a mistake too. I made mistakes on the Danish today. In the custard for the Danish, I put an egg with the custard mix, which already had the egg in it. And I was like, oh, who cares, right? Made a mistake, doesn't matter. And then when I went to put it in the oven, I forgot to put the wash on it, like the egg wash. And then it was in there. I was like, okay, what I'll do is I'll wait for it to get hard, because when you first cook the pastry in there, it gets soft, right? So the butter starts melting, so it gets soft. And then I thought, like, if once the shell of it starts getting hard, then I'll pull it out and put it on. Sure enough, waited for it to get hard, put on. Now it's got it's got the wash on it. It's got that little shiny kind of egg, film that you guys see real, if you go to a Annie bakery, you'll see that on there. But hey, made 2 mistakes, right? But if I didn't know how to correct the mistake early on, I wouldn't know how to fix that. And I'll be like kicking myself and like down on myself. And I was like, no. I was like, oh, doesn't matter. It's egg custard. So it's egg in there. It might taste a bit more eggy, but who cares, right? It's me eating it. I'm not selling it. I'm not, giving it to anybody. But first, anyway, I'll taste it myself to make sure it's right. But this is, this is the whole idea of no fear of cooking that I've always thought of setting up. It's like, fear comes from not understanding what you're doing, and not understanding what you're doing comes from lack of experience, or the fact that somebody's actually made you say, oh, your cooking sucks, something like that, and that can be like really put you off, and you don't want to do that anymore. So let's get back to this video with the loans and stuff.
Please see the CCP seizing the opportunity to contribute more funds, thereby amplifying its influence. Professor Xia further remarked that the United States aims to limit the CCP's influence, considering the World Bank currently has ample capital. The U.S. is well aware of the CCP's ambitions and strategies, intending to thwart their success. Another aspect is the perception by the United States and Western nations that China no longer qualifies as a developing country.
100% agree with
No
this.
genuine developing country has the capability to independently launch satellites, deploy missiles, or construct high-speed rail networks. Given this classification of China as a developed nation, it should not be eligible for preferential loans from the World Bank or the International Monetary Fund. Observers note that as the World Bank's largest contributor, the United States may withdraw financial support for international bodies to prevent the CCP from emerging as the primary beneficiary, thereby averting further global risks. Under former U.S. President Trump's administration, the U.S. exited at least 12 international entities, including the United Nations Human Rights Council and the World Health Organization, criticizing that the U.S. disproportionately financed these organizations which, in some cases...
So here's the thing, right? The United Nations is about protecting nations and ethnic groups, and also, however, one of the biggest abusers of that is China itself. And it was, the Uyghur putting concentration camps, like, forced sexual contact with non-Uyghurs, right? Because they're Muslims, right? So they're very, what is it called? They're very religious to their belief system. So they're very pure in their ideals of not, mixing and all that stuff. The whole idea of what is like that in Christianity is called the Gentiles, right? Jews and Gentiles, right? So such a thought. So like I can't remember what it's called in Islam. Apostate, something like that. Somebody on the outside. And so with China itself taking their minority group, indigenous group, and doing that to them, and people being okay with it, it's kind of sad, especially. That whole Disney thing that happened where they were actually filmed at a place which belonged to the Uyghurs, who were now being treated as slaves by the government, and basically being pulled out of their own communities. And it's very interesting to watch the China Observer and the other one that put up there, China Truth, talk about these things, especially in regards to the Uyghurs right now, how that's happening there, and how they actually are trying to use the Uyghurs as propaganda to get people to speak well, and especially so-called YouTube influencers or social media influencers talk good about seeing these Uyghurs dance, right? Or being amongst them when they're eating all these different foods. and using that as a propaganda tool to say, oh, how we're good. These people like we don't have any animosity, and because they're coming out and look, they're dancing with us. It's really weird to see that, because propaganda is a real nasty thing about it. If you haven't studied it, I suggest studying how propaganda works its wormy hands into cultures and stuff. And so let's go back to this one. So
seem to be unduly influenced by the CCP. In December 2019, the World Bank approved a plan to extend low-interest loans ranging from $1 to $1.5 billion annually to China until June 2025. Trump openly questioned the rationale behind these loans to a financially robust China, suggesting such practices should be halted. Taiwanese financial expert Huang Shizong reflects on the extensive support China has received from international organizations, which was justified when China was considered a developing country.
Yeah.
However, with China now recognized as a global power and the world's second largest economy, the U.S. questions the need for continued subsidies, initiating steps to cut back on these financial aids and challenge China's developing country status. Huang also finds it peculiar that the CCP, despite founding the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank (AIIB) to support other nations, still seeks subsidies from the World Bank and other international groups.
That's so hypocritical, and it's a hypocrisy, right? You are getting loans in the billions, right? I think it was like $1 trillion or something like, from the West, yet you have a bank that you take that money into and put it into, and then give out loans to the Pacific Islands, to Africa, developing African communities or whatever, building bridges everywhere, on our goodness of our own thing. No. It's the money that's actually out of those communities going back to those communities to make them prop themselves up, to look like a helping hand. That's how, it's kind of like almost like propaganda, right? Because you're going, oh, we're going to take from Tom to give to Dick, right? But it's Dick's money anyway, right? So that thing is like, but well, what about Tom? Why is Tom giving you money to give to Dick? Because it just doesn't make sense, right? I'll probably butcher that. I'm thinking like, I think I butchered that once, but you know what I mean, right? Why are we giving these guys loans, and then they turn around and give loans to other countries to make themselves look good? And this is why I said earlier on how Africa and China, African nations, and especially African nations and Indian main continent, right, is basically saying we're not going to put up with this anymore, right? We're not going to let you come into our communities with your goods, like your fake goods, your counterfeit stuff, or your subpar quality goods, and actually ruin our economy. Right, and it's been huge. I've been following this for about 5-6 months now, and watching how everybody's like looking at this. South America is the same. It's going like, no, we don't want your crap over here anymore, right? And so to balance it all out, they're basically like, oh, we'll give you this. We'll come and do this. We'll build your infrastructure. Like I think it was like Cook Islands. They were going to go buy up this whole port, or get given this whole port to. Like this whole beach area to build a port, so they could now drop off their ships and bring their ships directly there to then move around their products into the islands. However, we found out like recently there was $1 million or something like fentanyl coming from from China into Fiji, right? So if you got all these ports coming up, what else is coming up amongst all the ships in those containers, right? Because if you have what is it called? If you have someone in the, if you're able to move ships and trucks around, you can pay somebody, the customs, and it's happened in the past. I've known this. It's happened in Fiji with airports and stuff. You can just here's a couple of bucks, mate. Here's we'll come on the outside. We'll give you a bottle. If you let this pass, we'll give you a bottle from customs, whatever, duty free, a bottle of rum or whatever, Bounty usually, because Bounty is the biggest thing in Fiji, and we'll give you 40 ounce of Bounty if you just let this shit pass through. However, what about ships? What about containers? All that, and so, and brides, yeah, you know, all this stuff, and that's important to do. So, and I thank you for mentioning that, Steve. So there's a huge, also human trafficking going on in China right now, right? Like huge for decades, right? Not just recently, for decades, right? Like children that were lost, like stolen 20 years ago, are being found now, right? And stuff like that. So this whole, you know, human trafficking isn't new. It's been happening for a while, you know. And the other thing is, with all the businesses leaving China, people, you know, because of all this stuff and all the negative, you know, press that China's getting, and how they've been, like, you know, ripping off and counterfeiting. And like, look, if you're a company making, say, you know, a new headset, right? Because, you know, technology, and you go, okay, we're going to get it to China, we're getting faster, and then suddenly it turns around that they put their own little rip-off label on it. So, like, say it's like Beats, right? Now it's like, say Beats, what would we like? It was like Tones, right? So Beats by Dre is now Tones, right? By Braid, right? And you think, oh, it must be the same quality. Well, it's not. So Dre, basically, all that work he went into manufacturing, because it costs a lot to manufacture technology like that. I know, because we're looking at doing like a simple, you know, a chibi doll. It's going to cost about $5,000 US to get about 100 of these made, right? Because you got to get the bronze, you got to get the plates and all that done up, and then you got to get the packaging done up. And so with that, all that cost that goes into developing something one-off, right, adds a huge cost to that straight away. And so, say like Beats by Dre, right? Because I'm saying that because I've got the freaking headphones, right, there. And so now that's like, you know, Tones by Braid, right? So these guys no longer have put that 5K or maybe something like with technology, it's got like about 20K into developing, make sure the quality of wire, especially I think it's a cloth. There's, for my one, I know it's a cloth, and there's like wood, you know, stuff like that. There's like different variances of it, right? Just the design, and like getting an artist like me or someone else designing so it fits right economically, right? And that's what you learn at design school in the first year, right? Economically. So everything works and fits right. There's enough length of wire, and like all that shit, right? Now, all that has been pushed aside because all you got to do is now fake that, because you already got that, you know, you already got the plates, right? Now you can just manufacture it. No need for that $20,000 of investment, or in that case, $5,000 of investment into it. And I was looking like, well, can I get this made in New Zealand, right? Can I get somebody locally to do it so that we can actually pay someone locally to make this for us, right? And because I don't want this to go overseas and get knocked off, and now they're selling it for $5 when it cost me $5K American, which is like 7,500 something like that, New Zealand, to actually set up the first one, right? So I can mass produce it and such on. And they don't have that. And that's why I say that local economy is getting destroyed, and because the cost of things, but also the ingenuity and the you know, actually somebody going out and go, you know, I'm going to do this for you guys in New Zealand, but these are my costs. And then you go, oh, that's too much. And it's like, well, if you go overseas, that's going to be mass produced in like 24 hours by that same you know, same factory, and they're going to give it to somebody else, and now that factory is going to sell it on YouTube and buy a thing. Yeah, and we're not big enough to do that, but even so, I'll you know, one day I hope we're at that stage where we can do that. You know, but I don't think I want to sell it anyway to anybody else, because I think if somebody did approach us and go, okay, we want to turn Incredigle into a, you know, figure, and we want you to put, you know, as part of your comic book, and now we're going to do animation, and maybe someday we'll do live action. I'm okay with that, but there'll be, certain restrictions to do what I want. No race changing, no gender changing, and all that stuff, right? And like stick to the origin story of concept and everything that's there, because what's the point of producing something and you don't even produce it what the people liked in the first place and make a joke of it, like Madam Web right now, right? It's supposed to be like an 80-year-old, 70-year-old lady is now a kid, right? A 20-year-old girl. And it's like, doesn't work. That's why everybody hates it, because because you've lost the origin story of that. So I find like interesting how China is pretending to be, on the one hand, a developing country because they get billions of dollars of resources, financial help, yet turn that around and say, you know what, we are a superpower, we can help you, develop, get your infrastructure, we'll build bridges, we'll build roads for you. Because at the end of the day, that money should be ours anyway, right? Because we're the one who's putting it to the World Bank. Why should China get it and give it back to us? And that's what I think is quite silly, how the carbon tax thing as well. It's like, why isn't China paying their carbon tax? Why is a country as small as us paying their part, right? As well as our part for it. So let's see what else we got on this.
Under the guise of being a developing nation. Tian argues that the CCP's entitlement to preferential loans meant for developing countries is unjust to those genuinely in need, underscoring the U.S. opposition to further lending. He believes this stance effectively cuts off the CCP's access to inexpensive capital and low-interest loans from the World Bank, making it more difficult for it to survive the economic crisis. China's iron rice bowl cracks. Millions face job losses over next decade.
Right. So you guys can, do check out these guys. They are very cool. And like, here's the thing, and I mean like information-wise, because with research and stuff, they don't do long videos, right? They just do quick snippets of what they do, but they do a lot of research. And as I said earlier on, a lot of information is hard to come by outside of China because of the way they control it all on their Baobao, I think Taobao or WeChat, the Chat and Tencent, their own version of X or, social media. It's very strongly controlled. It's like very heavy. You can't, people are using like giraffes as a kind of like a revolt thing, against what's happening. And and here's the other thing. We don't know, but if you're not paying attention to sites like this who are reporting on this, that there's 500 protests a day, right, in China against the government, right, against what's going on there. So next up is, I think we did the cigarette. Let me just play this again. I think, if you're just joining us, this would be a really cool, important thing, and like talking about counterfeiting, and we'll go just finish off on that one. But this one here.
This is a pair of down pants my mom bought for my child online. My child said that they were uncomfortable to wear, always complaining about feeling something odd inside. So I decided to cut it open here, and what I found inside really shocked me. It was betel nut husks and cigarette butts. These were the first batch of foreign objects I removed. Just now, I felt there might be something else around here, like some sort of hard cardboard. Oh my goodness, it's plastic and hard cardboard. Can you believe these were in the line of children down pants? No wonder she said it felt like it was pinching her flesh uncomfortably. Online shopping has become an important mode of consumption.
So that's just a bit from there. Let me see what else I've got on the radar today. I think that's about covers us. Yeah, that about covers us. So let me just check. So if we're just in finishing here, I want to show you, some work that we've got, we did this week. And this is work in progress and cost, character designs. And I thought I'd put out something in a way of saying, who these characters are, but in an interesting way that you actually understand who's who. So if you notice, like, this is the project that we're working with Luis Andrade, from Brazil, and he's designing each character. But I wanted to tell you, who they are in a way by the other person naming them. So you've got this is what I call a monster creature horror comic. So you've got over here, you got Shayla on your. Let me bring this up. So here you've got Shayla, right? So you got Hey Iosas, and this is Iosas, which is basically Joe or Joseph, right, in Italian. And then you've got Hey Iosas, hey Shayla, ready to leave, and then Alicia here goes. We call her Miss Aurelia, but her name's Alicia. So she goes, where you two going, hon? We're going to Maritime Beach, Miss Aurelia. And then he goes, I got my eye on you, boy. Don't name him, but it's just kind of like working through these character designs. It's this is this, and along with, let me show this other one. Like I did this morning, like early hours, like about 4 o'clock or something. Because I realized that I was supposed to like get a design of this this where are we? Let me put that right because it's actually sideways. So we like the other project that we're working on is called Zealandia, and the first story in that is Fantastical Romy. However, in my head, I know what I want. This is here, and I describe it. But the artist is going, and he's a brilliant artist. He's going, I think you should do a mock-up so I get an idea of what you're thinking about. And I said, oh, shit, I should have done that. And then I realized, so last night, within like about 3 hours or something, I was researching, trying to get images and stuff and trying to figure out what's where. And so, I went in and designed the palace, right? This is the, as you can see here, Rashtriya Kingdom of the Forest Elves, or Water Rain. Water Rain is basically this version of New Zealand's, which is called Zealandia, this parallel kind of world, country, I should say, and world as well, is Whangarei, our city where I live. And so we have like 2 bridges on our side, on our city as well. So I thought, why not put 2 bridges in, one going across and one coming back? And so we got the twin bridges. And then this is the waterfront here, which is, this is the waterfront, sorry, my bad, where we have like shops and stuff. And then we have a museum that was recently built. And so, on this side, on this side of the riverside, because we call this side the riverside, or Riverside Drive, and this side's the riverside, there's a Hatia river that goes through here, and so you got the bush and you got Tikipanga on the side, and further up. But here, this is going to be a township of where people just be outside of the palace and of the the main capital. People have their own homes built. Different people, right? They're like beastmen, elves, dwarves who settled here, right, on this side of the river. And so, and then if you're looking at the map, this is Mount Parihaki, and and then there's the plains and there's like little hills behind it as well. But this is our main mountain here in the city. And so I thought, why not turn this mountain into like levels of palace, right? And then around that, there's a big story behind the dryads and the kauri trees, because I wanted to bring the kauri trees into this world as a main thing, because it's one of our very important trees, right? It's like our native. There's kauris in Fiji as well, right? But for New Zealand, it's a big important thing. It's kind of timber. It's like one of the most strongest timbers we have, hardwoods, I should say, and it's got this real beautiful gold sheen to it. And I've worked with, with it, and so like it would be cool to have that part of it. I could put Remo in there, but no, kauris are what we deserve. So we've got all these coming through, but they actually have a practical reason for these there as well. There's a real deep connection to the first time the elves arrived to this nation, this country called Zealandia, which is basically New Zealand, but tenth the size, right? That's why you can see the whole mountain is just a palace, right? Here, and then you got all these here. But this is because this is big because it's closer to us, right? It'll be smaller if we're looking from the other side. And so, yeah, this is, you know, then I realized, I said, you know what, I'm going to do this for every city that we have for this country, that like at all the main cities, there's quite a few main cities. And so I'll do the same thing so that we can actually, you know, he doesn't have to struggle with trying to figure out what I'm thinking in my head, right? A lot of times, like artists, I try to make it as easy as possible for artists, right? Because like even like when I was looking at, you know, showing you this character earlier with, you know, these character designs, these are all like have images, like photo references for them, right? Of actors and so on, and go, hey, use this and so on. Some, I mean, but they're references. Right, the clothing, the design, you know, I go, she's got to have floral, you know, top, you know, and she's got to have like this kind of like a Italian look, because kind of modern Italian look, and because that's how modern Italians are dressing right now, you know, because I did a search for the look, and I said I want him to look a bit more like, you know, a bit overweight, but not too overweight, but a bit more stocky, and you know, loose, you know, like sneakers, t-shirt, you know, jeans. So it's all kind of like works them together. I want him to look like a 20-year-old, you know, around the early 20s, but not have too much beard like him, so that you actually look like he's a younger person, you know. And so all this thing, you know, when you're developing characters, what I am, you know, the way I work is like, this is how I work with the artist. I go, this is my reference. This is how we talk, and we talk through it all, and then it'll come back. Oh, there's the color scheme, right? And so that we have actually, even before we go to color stage, we actually have an idea of where we are with the colors and what will work with them. And of course, you know, as we go on, the costume changes will happen. But this is the look, you know. And the other thing is like the, you know, Miss Aurelia, which is Alicia Aurelia, and you got Isis, you know, they're kind of like mother and son. So, you know, they can't have two different skin tones, right? And so, you know, being Italian, and she being Italian, and I think he's got a mixed sort of race going on, because he's like, you know, he's only, you know, in his 20s or something, but she's way older, right? And so it's got to all come into play on how we tell the story. And you know, I've had then there's three or four more characters, main characters, that kind of play a part of this one, you know, this 20-30 pages of story, where we've done like the main characters, and now everything's kind of like extras and all that. And so, yeah, it's kind of interesting because it's set in 1700s and also 1794, kind of around that period, as well as like in 2023, right? And so on. And so we're kind of like moving back and forth, like half the stories in this time and the other half in that time. And so it's really interesting, and like creating like the you know, a usable fashion in that thing, not making it exactly the same, but making it, you know, 1700 fashions are very interesting, to say the least. You know, like let me just pop up one just to give you a bit of an idea on that, and then we'll finish off here. Let's get out of Zealandia. Let's go to Howler. Antonio. Right. So this is what I mean by, like, you know, that sort of fashion of that time of 1700. So you got this one here. This is Antonio, right? He's kind of like a young, you know, 17, 15-year-old kid, but very mature. And so, you know, you got this dress in the 1700s because, you know, it's got an interesting, you know, the way they dress. It's like pirate shoes, as they say, you know, because they were moving into that, I think it's a Victorian age, coming out of the Victorian into Elizabethan kind of, you know, and it's Italians dress a bit slightly different, but it was kind of like, it almost felt like in Europe they had a similar fashion style. So we get to see, you know, these interesting little versions of them, and it's always interesting to see different characters come up, and especially with Luis bringing dropping in a new character every the next day, every day kind of thing, and seeing it pop up, and we talk about like, okay, how is it supposed to look? Is this working with this? Because like these are like like the main sort of like designs for them, but when you actually go to the comic work, it's going to slightly change, because you have a better understanding, because now you're in the back of your head, you know what the characters look like, and you understand what they're supposed to do, and it's so much easier to now go, because now I can tell you this is Antonio, he's a prince, and that's why he looks so regal, and if I brought in someone like, say, a servant, she's not going to dress this way, right? So straight away. But like that's why I said early on, 90% of the work in a comic book is done that you don't see ever, right? Except when we show you like this, but you don't see like the day, throughout the day or the hours where he's working through the night trying to like design these characters, and I'm sending back message on Skype and saying, this got to change this, or that looks great, oh that's awesome, don't worry about it, what changes on this, stuff like that. And so it's really fun working with different artists from different countries and developing these different books to bring as I hope and believe, very cool, important stories that will entertain you all, right? So thank you, Steve, for hanging out and being here with me. Appreciate that, man. I hate I don't like just talking and not have anybody respond to that, but I really appreciate you hanging out. Thank you for that. And wherever you are, be well, be safe. And as I always say, if you've got a loved one next to you, give them a hug and a kiss, let them know you care, and that they're, and if you don't have anyone nearby and loved ones there, let them know, Skype, whatever, social media, let them know you think about them. And so we'll catch you next time. I think it's tomorrow. We've got a movie, Don't Hate Mondays movie thing, trailers and stuff, and animation, anime, all the works there, right, and TV shows. So we'll see you tomorrow. And if you missed the interview today, check it out. It's the Plunge Pop interview we did with George Valdez. Yeah, check that out. And also on Tuesday we've got a cosplayer, a conversation with Sephiroth Thackeray. So yeah, Kiwi male cosplayer. It would be really cool to see, because he puts a lot of work into stuff. Yeah, man. Well, thank you. Cheers, bro. We'll catch you next time. Cut it down, everybody. Have a good evening and have a good week. If we don't see you tomorrow.